All right, what's going on? Drive time, Monday afternoon, 13 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Breaking news, it is warm. It is hot. It was like desolate yesterday. If you were outside and you stayed alive, congratulations. It's a little cooler today, but we're still scratching 100 degrees. According to our guy Chase, weatherman galore over at KUTV, we set a record yesterday for temps that reached like 108 degrees. So hot weekend behind, hot week ahead. Happy Monday to you. Appreciate you making this radio show a part of your day today. It is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That is my name, Porter Larson, producing the program. A good guest list to bounce around with a bunch of different topics today. We'll look back on the Jazz Summer League experience. Of course, there's a game tonight, but we'll look back on the weekend. We're going to have Jazz Bulls tonight at 7 o'clock Mountain Time. That game's on ESPN. And Darren Peterson has been just so good, so dynamic. And, of course, the caveat is it's Summer League, so let's not get too weird, too crazy. But A.J. DeBonsa has looked really good for Washington. And as much as I think A.J. has a chance to be really, really good, Darren Peterson, in my opinion, is the guy that you want on this basketball team. So we'll do some Jazz basketball, some NBA basketball, some Summer League hoop on the show today on a Monday afternoon. The World Cup continues. We've got the big boys left, the semifinals left. Lionel Messi will play against England for the first time in his career. That's the Wednesday tilt. Both these games are at 1 o'clock Mountain Time. It can be seen on Fox. And then tomorrow, a game that a lot of people think might just be the World Cup final. It is France and Spain. Unbelievable tournament, man. This has just been so much fun. RSL will welcome in the English side, Burnley FC, for a friendly coming up this week. And then RSL will be taking on LAFC on the 22nd. And then it's an absolute sprint to the end. This calendar for RSL is going to be crowded with MLS matches, Leagues Cup matches as well. So we'll get you the latest with the World Cup stuff today. We'll do a little Real Salt Lake on the program on a Monday afternoon. Now, we were in Dallas last week for Big 12 Media Days. Had kind of an odd week last week with a day we were knocked off air as a result of a power outage due to the heat. And then Friday was a pretty jam-packed show. So we haven't done a ton on the Big 12 Media Day stuff. So we're going to bring some of that back around today for you and talk some Utah football, talk some Big 12 football. And the business of football right now is what a lot of people are focused on. So we're going to get to know this Crimson Brand Partners company, and we're going to get to know their CEO a little bit, and we'll talk to him about what the plans are moving forward for Utah football to make sure they can keep up with their peers, not just in the Big 12, but elsewhere. And speaking of that, BYU has announced a multi-year jersey patch partnership with Entrada. This is an interesting one. We'll talk about why on the show today. Entrada, a local company that was started by BYU students without like a direct-to-consumer product to sell for the most part. This is another example of BYU alums just wanting to support BYU. And it really does put them in a very unique place. And it puts pressure on Utah to find creative ways to keep up. And that creative pathway has led to the implementation of Crimson Brand Partners, of course, in conjunction with the Otro Capital deal. So we'll talk about that on the show today. We'll get to know a gentleman who's going to run the show on the program. Our first guest will be Matt Brown. Good day to have Matt on, who writes and blogs about the business of college athletics for Extra Points, his newsletter, which is a one-stop shop for me. So I always enjoy my conversations with Matt. He'll join us right out of the gates today. Pablo Mastroeni, head coach of RSL, former U.S. men's national team World Cup player, will join the program. We'll do some more Utah football with Sammy Mora from Ute Zone. And then coming up at 4:30, set your alarms, Mark Harlan, athletic director for Utah Athletics, and Matt Webb, who's the new CEO of Crimson Brand Partners. Really bright young guy. Comes to Utah from the world of the NFL, NBA. He has some Major League Baseball experience. His entire career was spent in pro sports, and now he is taking his talents to the collegiate level to be the CEO of Crimson Brand Partners. That conversation will come your way at 4:30 today, so set your alarms for that. So Matt Brown, Pablo Mastroianni, Sammy Mora, Mark Harlan, Matt Webb, busy Monday show. Me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. And that guy who has never had a bigger smile on his face than when I handed him a can of White Monster Energy, Porter Larson producing the program on a Monday afternoon. Okay, are you good? Are you okay? Are we all right?
I'm great. I just needed some caffeine.
That's not all that's in this thing, dude. I'll tell you what.
To be clear, you're not wrong, but I was in particular need of caffeine. Been out in the mountains, out in the sun, out of cell service for the last 3 days. So it was a pleasant surprise to see a nice ice-cold Monster Energy drink.
And you were right about the flavor. When the Monster Energy deal was announced, Big 12 Media Day, you were like, sugar-free, white can, do the deal. I think it's the best one. I've not sampled all of them, but out of the ones that I have tried, I think this is probably the play.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I said, they have like a bazillion, I think. So I haven't tried all of them, but the white one's pretty good.
There you go.
Pretty good.
It is. It is very good. So we have a Wired radio host and a Wired radio producer today to get you through the next 4 hours of your commute around town on this really hot, scorching Utah summer afternoon. Matt Brown is going to be our first guest right out of the gates. But before Matt stops by, courtesy of our friends at Game Day Men's Health, it is time now for your opening tip. Now, we are in July, right? So you've got 6 months of data at your disposal as to whether or not you were able to follow up on a New Year's resolution to get in shape, get back in shape, lose weight, lose a lot of weight, whatever it is. Now it's pool season. Are you the dad by the pool that won't take his T-shirt off? Well, Game Day Men's Health can help you out, okay? They're currently offering you the very same deal they offered me, and I've been working with them. In August, it will be 3 years now. So, number one, it's a free consultation. As I say every day, you should do that no matter what, because it doesn't cost you a cent and might take 20 to 30 minutes out of your day. You go in there, they take a little bit of blood work, and then they go over your levels with you, and they show you where you're doing well. Then they show you where you might be a little bit low or deficient and how their products can help. Now, I use their testosterone therapy and then their peptides. Those are the two products I've used. You probably heard a lot of people talk about peptides to help with joint pain and such. But they've got semaglutide, tirzepatide, all the weight loss stuff as well. So if you're looking for that, they have it as well. The best part of this deal, though, is if you decide to sign up and go through their program, they're going to hook you up with a 50% discount when you tell them you heard me talking about it on the show. So go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Schedule that free consultation. Go in, see what you think, and if you like what they have to say, sign up and save 50% on the products all year long. Get back in shape. Take that T-shirt off of the pool. You're embarrassing your wife, and you're embarrassing yourself. Not to be harsh. GameDayMen'sHealth.com is where you go. All right, so the Utah Jazz have a summer league game tonight, 7 o'clock. It is the Chicago Bulls. They're in Vegas. And Darren Peterson, so far, I think it's even safe to say he's been more impressive than I thought he was going to be. Now, remember, we talked about some of the numbers that were being thrown about. If Darren Peterson can be a 25-point, 5-rebound, 5-assist-a-night guy, then he's in rarefied air, and it puts him on a very short list of players that actually do that. When it comes to the pro basketball ecosystem, you hear numbers thrown around all the time. Like, hey, he's a 20-10 guy. And as I always say, go look at the list of guys that are 20-10. It is really short every single year, even shorter historically speaking. And go look at the list of the guys that are 25-5-5. It's easy to say that, but go look at the list. Now, for a rookie to be 25-5-5, we are talking Michael Jordan, we are talking LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and randomly Tyreek Evans, because Tyreek played for a Sacramento King team that didn't have very many good players, and they basically let him run the show. So to be a 25-5-5 guy as a rookie is a really tough ask. Darren Peterson, throughout the course of the early returns of Summer League, he's 25 points, he's 5 assists, he's about 3.5 boards. He's right there. Now, yes, this is Summer League, as I say all the time, every single year. You always have to pump the brakes when it comes to analyzing Summer League, good and bad. Like, you can't get over the moon if a kid is looking really, really good against inferior competition, and you can't panic because the way these games flow and the NBA using Summer League as a platform to tinker with rule changes or try to break in new officials, or guys that aren't even NBA players just playing their tails off in hopes that a NBA scout or exec sees them and says we should take a chance on him. It disrupts the flow. Oftentimes you see a lot of hero ball because a player wants to put up some numbers in his chance to impress scouts and impress executives, but it usually does not make for high-quality basketball, and so we do have to be careful here, okay, when it comes to what we're talking about with Darren Peterson. But here's what's really struck me, okay, and Darren has talked about this himself. And when you look at the way this team is constructed next year, in order for Darren to be 25-5-5 or anything like it, Will is going to have to start him and probably play him 32 minutes. Is he going to do that? I don't know. Steve Wojciechowski, who is coaching the Summer League team, is one of Will's top assistants. And sometimes with the Summer League stuff, you see some coaches that really want to try their own thing, and they really want to impress other teams because most assistants want to be a head coach at some point. So are you being part of the program, or are you doing your own thing? And Steve Wojciechowski, Wojo does not strike me as a guy that's trying to go rogue, which leads me to believe the way that he's using Darren, I think it's the way that Will plans to use Darren. And if that's the case, it's really exciting because, number one, it's really invigorated the player, okay? So Darren, on a couple of occasions, has talked about, well, wait a second, my entire career until I went to Kansas, I was your lead guard. Will doesn't like labels. So we try to kind of stay away from that, but it's not hard to see that Woj is utilizing Darren Peterson as the primary ball handler and, for the most part, the guy that initiates the offense. But at Kansas, Bill Self played him off the ball because they had a couple of really good point guards, and Bill Self thought Darren would be better utilized playing off the ball. Darren didn't enjoy it. That's as close to an admission that I've heard from him that things at Kansas weren't necessarily all that great. And now that he has the ball back in his hands, we are reminded of the player who up until the start of this season was not just the favorite to be the number one overall pick. There was a huge gap between Darren and everybody else, and that includes AJ. AJ had a far superior individual season in college than Darren did, so he surpasses him up. Washington also just paid Trae Young way too much money, but Trae Young is only a point guard and nothing else and cannot play off the ball. So if Darren Peterson was sending messaging to teams at the Combine or in his one-on-one visits like, look, this is who I am, okay? I'm a guy that needs the ball in his hands. I can initiate your offense. I can be your primary ball handler. Then you understand why Washington went AJ, because he just fits better, leaving the Jazz to select who I think is the best player in what could be a historic draft. Cameron Boozer's looked really good. Some of these other young players have looked really good. But if you have not been watching, and I get it because some people have a life, I mean, in his Summer League games up here, 27 points, 53% from the floor, 44% from three, 7 boards, 4 rebounds. That was just a couple of games up here. His debut in Vegas against AJ wasn't great. He did have 24 points, but it was 6 of 18, 2 of 7 from 3, and did cough up 8 turnovers, but most of the shots were good. He just missed, and that's fine. I never get in my feels about make or miss when it comes to a young player, certainly with some helter-skelter basketball being played around him. You're hearing Anthony Edwards' name being thrown out there now. You're hearing a Kobe Bryant, a Ray Allen. I mean, this is who this kid has a chance to be. And we'll continue to cover it and talk about it because it does feel seismic. It feels very important based on the history of this organization that has not been a championship contender since the year of our Lord, 1998. They just haven't been. Darren, Memo, AK, great teams. Booz, great teams. Donovan, Rudy, Quinn, that group, great teams. Championship level teams, no, they just weren't. And the Jazz aren't that this year, but if this kid turns into what I think he can be, they're not that far away. We'll get back to some Jazz stuff a little bit later on, but Matt Brown from Extra Points will join us right out of the gates. Our first guest on a Monday. Good to have you with us. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, Big 12 Media Days in the books. We were in Dallas, I guess technically Frisco, which is not the spot, by the way, if you've never been. For any of the sound, I think we have maybe 50 or 60 interviews up on ESPN700sports.com. Check it out if you're pining for some college football. If you're pining for the business of college football, there's nobody better to talk to than our buddy Matt Brown from the Extra Points newsletter, a one-stop shop for me about the business of college sports. And Matt joins us on a Monday. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I think I was just thinking here, it's, we're in the afternoon, blood sugar starting to dip a little bit. Was just thinking I might go reach for a nice, delicious, cold white Monster, I think, when we're done chatting.
Are you aware that I'm actually drinking one of those right now?
I think at any given time, roughly a third of Utah's population is drinking a Monster.
Oh, yes.
So that wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, no, I mean, it was met with tremendous excitement around here, obviously, Matt. Now, as far as the framework of this deal, I need you to help me understand whether or not the price is worth the real estate. I mean, it's jersey patches, it's a presence on the field for football, it's a presence on the court for men's and women's basketball. My initial reaction is that's a lot of real estate for not a lot of money, but you're the expert, not me. What do you think?
Yeah, well, there were a lot of people that work in this industry, folks that work for major MMR companies, folks that work for the handful of consultancies that specialize this kind of thing, that were more than happy to reach out to reporters and say, hey, I think the valuation on this is all wrong. This is a terrible deal. I don't want to say that it's like is that possible that this is a terrible deal? Yeah, it's possible. I think we're jumping the gun a little bit. Like, one, I think it's important for folks to realize the difference in real estate that we're talking about here. Every school has the ability to sign their own jersey patch deal and decide which sports that goes on, right? My understanding was just a couple hours ago, BYU announced a jersey patch just for football. That does not conflict with Monster. Kansas and Oklahoma State have their own. I'm sure at some point Utah will set up theirs. Because conferences can do their own thing for their own mark, I don't really buy the argument that this significantly devalues what you could get from a school patch, unless like BYU was secretly really trying to sign Celsius to be their sponsor, and then of course then you would have an issue. It's also not going to be on every single uniform for every single sport. It's just for the patches here for these handful of sports, and you're going to have international marketing exposure, which is something that's really important to the Big 12 office. What I would tell anybody here who's upset about this is if you're upset about it for aesthetic reasons, I can't argue with you. I can't argue matters of taste. A green M is going to look a little weird on a maroon or a purple or a Baylor jersey. Like, I don't dispute any of that. But if it was easy for schools to be able to sign $2 million plus a year jersey sponsorship deals, they would have done it. And I don't think it's an accident that most of this league hasn't done it yet. These are less liquid assets than you would think. So I don't believe a deal done by the league, which, by the way, is something that I know of 5 other conferences that are trying to do right now. That I wouldn't say that this is automatically a bad deal. It becomes a bad deal if it turns out you get explosive diarrhea from drinking peach Monster, and that becomes a news story for a month. But that's not where we are now.
Well, I do think that's a potential possibility. I got to say, I don't drink a lot of energy drinks, Matt, and after drinking my first Monster Energy, that can't be good for you. There's no possible way.
I say this with love as somebody who is an occasional actual Monster drinker. At no point when you're cracking open the beverage, does this feel like something that is natural or that came from the earth in any way? And if you are not somebody who is habitually having 300 milligrams of caffeine a day, my recommendation would be do not touch this stuff. That is, stick with Diet Coke and work your way up to something a little bit harder like a Monster.
Yes, indeed. And while it does feel completely appropriate for the amount of energy drinks that is consumed here in the state of Utah, it has been met with wait a second, that's going to be on our jersey? Because to your point, aesthetically, there's no way a green Monster Energy logo is going to look awesome on a jersey or on a field. But I guess that doesn't really matter because it's all about the revenue that's being generated.
So that's part of it. My suspicion, I don't think we've seen the actual mark yet, my suspicion is it's going to be pretty small. Because it's not going to be bigger than the actual Big 12, right? When you have a bowl game that has some kind of corporate sponsor, the corporate mark is generally not the biggest single thing that's on there. I would be pretty surprised if we look at an Oklahoma State or a BYU football uniform, if whatever monster iconography is way more prominent or equally prominent to whatever the sponsor patch is. Will it look weird? Yeah. If you don't like energy drinks or you're against the idea of commercializing these uniforms at all, would you be opposed to this? Sure. I would be a little surprised if it's so gaudy and so distracting that it becomes a meme throughout the season. I mean, it might be different for you because maybe you guys are kind of have to call it like Big 12 Monster Energy football or whatever it is that the league is asking people to do. I'm not going to do that. If the official partners have to do it, maybe they'll feel differently.
Have you been able to learn how this came about? Because, and I have to be a little careful here, but I was in Frisco for media days, and when Brett Yormark did his whole, like, are you a conference commissioner or are you a preacher or a politician introductory presser, which was just weird. Sure. And he announced that this monster deal had come down. I spoke to more than a few people, and I'm like, so let's get into the details. Are you sure, are you comfortable with how this has kind of been laid out? And more than a few people who I would absolutely believe would be in the know are kind of like, we're still just kind of learning about it. I mean, how much of this was like Yormark going to get this done? Who was involved as far as the process that unfolded?
I don't think I know enough to say who else at the campus level knew. I know, or I guess I've been told that this deal originally surfaced and the legwork was done through the league office. League office does not have the power to unilaterally do anything like this without the consent and approval of the member institutions. Now, does that mean that somebody who might be a senior associate AD for external that would definitely know if you were selling a major scoreboard ad at Rice Eccles? Is it possible that person wasn't informed? Yeah, I think that's possible. Did Harlan know about it beforehand? Yes, that I'm quite comfortable with, and this isn't something that I think would have been approved if all of the league ADs were worried that it would undermine their existing sales efforts or other partnerships that they might have. I can also tell you, just as a guy who's been writing about this stuff a lot, that the idea, again, of a league trying to sell a bundled asset that would appear on everyone's jersey through the league mark, the Big 12 is not the only league that has been having those conversations. It's not the only league in this geographic footprint that has had those conversations. Like, I don't know if anybody else will make an announcement necessarily before September 1st, but this arrangement I know has been discussed not just among like Power 4 leagues, but through a lot of mid and low major leagues too, because the idea there, if you're somebody like the Big Sky or the Big West, you might actually be able to make more money doing something as a package deal than every individual school does by itself.
Well said. All right. Utah is now an Adidas school. For a number of years, it was Under Armour, and the new partnership will be Adidas. I'm seeing in your newsletter that you obtained some guidance sent to schools from Nike and Adidas about what they consider acceptable sponsorship partners. Can you help us understand that?
I can. So, and I would assume Under Armour has done the same. I've reached out to a couple of Under Armour schools. I just didn't get a response back in time. But both Nike and Adidas are reminding their schools, like, hey, we also paid a lot of money to have our corporate marks on these uniforms. And there's a few things that we will not be okay with if you make that your primary partner here. Many of them are obvious, right? Nothing associated with what might be considered a sin industry, nothing related to tobacco, nothing directly related to gambling outside of tribal interests, nothing related to alcohol. You also can't do one with what either of those companies calls a direct competitor. And that means that isn't just Nike or Adidas. That also means athletic apparel companies and equipment companies that might only compete in one or two sub areas. So, like, not that Utah would do this, but like theoretically, you wouldn't be able to put a Speedo patch on a Utah uniform because those two companies compete in swim caps. Speedo's not making football jerseys as best as I'm aware of right now, but they're casting a pretty broad definition of what a competitor here might be. But it also stipulates where you could put the logo and sizing compared to everything else here. I'd be very surprised if any of the companies kind of on a Utah target list would be controversial to Adidas. I'd be curious. You obviously would know this far better than I would. What's been the fan reaction to that change? Because I certainly don't know any fan base at this point who is particularly enthusiastic about still being part of Under Armour.
Yeah, it's a really good question because I think I guess I'm only speaking through my prism and maybe my echo chamber of my friends who went to the U and people
Sure.
who I know who are season ticket holders. But I've seen a lot of we were ready to move on from Under Armour. The gear hasn't been great for quite some time, but we were wishing that it was someone other than Adidas. I don't really know. I can't tell you what the pulse of the entire fan base has been, but I do. The sentiment was it was time to find a new partner. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, I on this note, I don't think I'm telling any state secrets here. Under Armour is not getting out of the college landscape, but it's not nearly as big of a player as it was a decade ago. And with the exception really of Notre Dame, Wisconsin, and Northwestern, and now Georgia Tech, I guess, they've lost almost all of their main college partners. They've lost Steph Curry. They're more of their marketing money is flowing elsewhere. And this is not great for fans. I understand why there's some frustration with this, but there just aren't very many other alternatives out there. If your school signs with Adidas, what I can tell you from looking at 100 plus of these dang contracts, generally speaking, Adidas will pay a lot more money in cash than Nike will to the athletic department. Sometimes 3, 4, 5x more than what Nike might be doing for a guarantee. And the reason Nike doesn't pay as much cash is because they're very confident that they got the best stuff, not just the stuff that is consumer facing for fans, but they make more different kinds of athletic equipment for the whole department than Adidas does. And the athletes in more sports tend to like working with that. But if you're a school, and Utah might be in this position right now where revenue matters a great deal, I would be quite confident that Adidas would offer more money to the department than New Balance or some challenger company compared to Nike. And I'm not surprised that's the direction that they went.
If you don't have anything here, we can quickly move on. But do you know what the deal actually is, what the numbers are? Because I've seen some social media stuff going around, and there are some people alluding to the fact that it actually is less money maybe than what Utah was getting from Under Armour annually. Can you corroborate that?
That would surprise me. It's not impossible. I filed a gramma 10 minutes after the announcement came out. Utah, as you guys might know, is one of the slower Power 4 athletic departments in responding to things. So, maybe I'll get a response sometime in November for what the deal is. What I would tell people, and this is, I think, a pretty common fan misconception about athletic apparel contracts, and this is only becoming more of the case over the last 10 years, is that for anybody, whether you're Ohio State, Utah, Weber State, anyone, the overwhelming majority of the value of your athletic apparel contract is not cash. You'll see some crazy headline, oh my God, this deal's worth $800 million. It's not. Nobody is going to pay $800 million in U.S. currency over a 4, 6, 8, 10-year period. The bulk of the value for any of these is going to be in product. Utah has to buy a crap ton of uniforms and cleats and T-shirts and hoodies and backpacks and blocking dummies and all this other kind of equipment, and you get millions and millions of it for free, plus millions more at a steep discount across the department. If you are a very, very large brand, you get a licensing guarantee or a check above all of those discounts. And it used to be, when I was earlier in my career in the 2010s, lots of schools got cash guarantees. Now that is changing, and there are schools in the Big 12 even that are good athletic programs that make the postseason in basketball that don't get any cash. I'm sure Utah would, or it would really surprise me if they weren't. But if you're not Ohio State, Alabama, Tennessee, Penn State, LSU, if you're not a top 12 consumer-facing brand, and no disrespect to either BYU or Utah, I would not say either of them are, you're not in a position to get $30 million in cash from Adidas, whereas you might have been 20 years ago.
Interesting. So you referenced where Utah finds itself right now, and the creation of Crimson Brand Partners. Mark Harlan and Matt Webb, the new CEO of Crimson Brand Partners, joined the podcast. We're going to play that coming up in just a little bit. First time I'd been able to meet Matt, and obviously I've known Mark forever. Comes on the show. We're the flagship partner for the Utes. We still have literally zero numbers, no information about. The initial report was $500 million in capital. Now there are people that are, kind of talking about the fact that it's less than that. There was a report that 66% of the ownership of Crimson Brand Partners in the pocket of Utah, and then 33 and change or whatever goes to Otro. There are rumors around the market that that's not the deal either. I have not been able to get anyone on the record to talk numbers. Do you have any new information since you and I last spoke?
Yeah, I don't have confirmation enough for me to feel confident publishing it. I have heard pretty similar things, I think, that you have. Even even last December, when I think the story this first broke, I had people in Salt Lake and people with Utah email addresses telling me, hey, everyone's running with this $500 and $600 million number, and in actuality, and especially in years 1 and 2, that's not the number. But whether the number was 400 or whether the number was 70, people weren't telling me. And I suspect part of the reason they weren't sharing in December was because they didn't know. There wasn't a term sheet. Things were still being negotiated above the very big picture here. I don't think it's a positive development for Utah taxpayers, Utah fans, stakeholders of this university system and fan base to be this deep into something so dramatic and to not have the math. In part because I'm quite confident within the next year, Utah fans are going to be asked to pay more. Whether that's more money in tickets, more money for parking, more money for licensed goods, more money for snacks at stadiums. You can't do this kind of financial arrangement and get any kind of return to investors without dramatically increasing revenues, and that's going to come in large part on fans. I don't think it's fair to them to ask for more if you're not laying out how much of that's actually going to go to the university versus investors versus anything else. I hope that those numbers will be disclosed at some point, but this is not the greatest state in the country for open records laws and forced disclosure. So I'm not optimistic.
And as a result of creating a separate entity, Crimson Brand Partners, that was created with the Otro Capital deal, my understanding is they're not as beholden to grandma requests, public records requests, as they would be if it was a university property. Am I even using the right language here?
No, that's my understanding too. And this is different from state to state. So, like as an example, Kentucky, a fellow red state, also huge flagship athletic program. Kentucky is setting up a separate LLC to manage some real estate developments and other commercial activity for Kentucky athletics. But because the university is the main shareholder in that enterprise, it's not, run through a PE like Utah is. Kentucky state law says all of that's still subject to open records, just like it is for their hospital system. Other states like Texas and Utah do not have that requirement. And my understanding is that that's also part of the appeal for this. Now, the university could decide to voluntarily make some disclosures, even if the full nuts and bolts of every email within Otro Capital don't have to be disclosed. Penn State does that. Florida and Florida State do that, even though they don't have to. Utah may decide not to. And my assumption, given my professional dealings with this university, and I say this not to pejoratively, I think this is just the facts of the situation. They're not going to err on the side of public disclosure, whether that's because the numbers look bad or because that's just the direction the university is going to err on. I wouldn't be shocked if next January we can't even get Utah's MFRS report.
So
which I think would be bad news.
yeah, no, for sure. And I always find the conversation around just the private equity in college sports somewhat interesting because, it was kind of applauded here in Salt Lake City that we are the first to do this. But also, I think it's probably safe to say, like, if you didn't need to do it, you wouldn't have done it. And we're all really hoping it works because they do need to keep up with namely BYU and Texas Tech in the Big 12 and their peers across the country. As one very, very powerful booster told me, his name is on one of the buildings up there, this has to work. Okay, so we're all hoping that it does. But also, there's probably a reason why they were first, and at this point, somewhat unprecedented. Not a lot of other schools, if any, are doing it. And there's a tremendous amount of trepidation and skepticism about the role of private equity in college athletics. So what are some of the conversations you have just kind of around the ecosystem of college football about whether or not Utah's doing the right thing and whether or not others will follow suit?
It is rare, not unprecedented, but it is not common for me to talk to another AD or another industry leader that I trust that thinks that Utah made the right decision. Why Utah was interested in this to begin with, I think that's pretty clear. They're not the only school in this situation. I think you can look at 2/3 of the ACC and half of this league and even many institutions in the Big Ten that are in a similar boat where they're being asked to compete financially with some behemoths that they're never going to be able to do under conventional circumstances. Many of the other schools that they're public, like Utah, and need to raise a significant amount of capital, can do it cheaper. And without having to give up as much, again, problematic that I think we don't know exactly how much, but without having to give up any equity stake through selling bonds and through more traditional fundraising or through state appropriations. So what Utah is doing here is seen as higher risk. There's higher potential upside because if you just sell bonds, you're not bringing on operational expertise and industry connections that Ocho Capital has, whether that's through F1 or some of the other data products within their investment portfolio. But the risks are, I think, pretty significant. I don't want to say that nobody else will do this. Lots of schools have had lots of conversations. I don't mind admitting this. One school that I know had took 3 or 4 of these kind of meetings was North Carolina, and that's not a school that has a small athletic profile. But there's a reason that they ultimately passed on it. I have heard similar sentiments from Utah donors. I'm sure you talk to more Utah donors here than I do. The consequences of this not working would be significant for years. If it does work, and it certainly could, I don't know if it's going to ever put Utah on complete financial footing with a Cody Campbell-backed Texas Tech. But it will mean that they have the money that they need to do to make things like the Huntsman Center, to make things like their baseball new stadium investment, to make things like athletic payroll tripling in 4 years more sustainable. But it is very high risk, and I think if they were really, really proud of the terms that they would secured, they wouldn't be hiding them this much.
You had referenced the news that came down that Brigham Young struck a deal with Entrada for their jersey sponsorship for the football side. And to show you how little I pay attention to this stuff, I was like, oh, they signed the deal with the golf course in St. George. I mean, but nope, it's the actual company Entrada. Of course, founded by BYU students, and they don't really have a direct-to-consumer product, if I'm understanding it correctly. So this appears to be another case of BYU alums just wanting to help their school, which does put them in a pretty good spot. Tell me your thoughts.
So I'm going to be honest with you. I had never heard of Entrada. And that probably makes sense, right? I'm not in the commercial property management business. I don't live in Utah. And this was not one of the companies that I had kind of heard through the MMR grapevine was kicking the tires on things, but it does make sense. When you look at the kind of firms that are buying jersey patch partnerships right now, they tend to fall in a couple of categories. They're either companies that are founded by alumni or people very, very close to the university that also either already have a relationship with the athletic department or are trying to secure one that goes beyond just a jersey patch. And my understanding, that's the case here for Entrada. So you look at this as just deepening your relationship the way that you would if you were deciding to buy way more sponsorship assets for women's volleyball or women's basketball or something. You have a non-trivial number of these that are tribal gaming partnerships. For institutions in states that have tribal gaming or that have deep historic ties to the Native American community, like Oklahoma State. That's the kind of thing I wouldn't be surprised if Sacramento State eventually announces, or maybe other institutions in the Pacific Northwest, like Washington State. And then beyond that, you tend to have really boring, gigantic companies like university healthcare systems, or credit unions or multi-state banks, because these things aren't cheap. And that's where the economics of this all kind of makes sense, right? This is the kind of thing where, it's going to be too expensive for Arctic Circle or too expensive for some kind of a dirty soda company. And you end up having things that are boring, just like when you look at who buys jersey patches in the NBA or around Major League Baseball, or a lot of really high-end soccer kind of things. I would think it would be way more likely that a hypothetical Utah patch would be something like Intermountain Health or America First Credit Union or something like that, than maybe a more unique, offbeat, local sort of company.
Before I set you loose, being down there for Big 12 Media Days, there was some real, you can't sit with us, mean girl energy going on. It's clear.
Yeah, people are mad at Texas Tech.
Yes. It's very clear that there's a chasm that exists between the other schools in tech and maybe even the conference in tech. And Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports did some good reporting on this secret meeting at a steakhouse in Dallas. It felt very House of Cardsy. And the one piece that I wanted to read, this quote, and then get your thoughts, was from Cody Campbell when he said, quote, "We don't have a problem with the Big 12. We want to find a way to get all other Big 12 schools to elevate themselves. Everybody needs to do some version of what we've done. That's the path forward for this conference. A rising tide lifts all boats. People not on board with that, and those who want everyone worse so they can be relatively better, will have a problem with those institutions. It reeks of, you need to be rich like I am." It was super tone deaf, but your reaction to that, Matt, then I'll set you loose.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Very few schools have somebody who is as independently wealthy and also cash liquid, and so transparently committed to athletics as Campbell. He's not the only one. He's by far the loudest and most prominent and most visible and most content to gossip with reporters. But there's just not 30 of those people. The kind of people that have that kind of money in BYU land. They're giving to the medical school project. They're mission presidents somewhere. They're not writing $100 million checks to athletics. And I think in that community, there would be a little bit of a social penalty if you were doing that, unless you were also giving to a bunch of other things. And it's just not the kind of school that Arizona State or Iowa State or Cincinnati or Central Florida are. I don't think I'm telling tales out of school if I share that there are coaches in this league that have some real personal sympathy and empathy for Coach McGuire at Texas Tech. He's like Kalani, like Whittingham was for a long time. He's somebody that's really respected by his peers, and people understand that McGuire was put in a difficult situation, and cares about the well-being of Sorsby. Cody Campbell's not going to win any Mr. Congeniality Awards in this league. He's not going to win any Congeniality Awards on Capitol Hill, or at NACDA, or in lots of places where athletic administrators gather. And, I think I mentioned this before last time we chatted, right? Like when the Sorsby stuff first came out, I was at the gigantic AD convention and was near a couple of Big 12 ADs and a lot of other people in this industry that are not prone to profanity, that are not prone to anger, and I have never seen such a visceral, personal reaction to anything in college sports as I've been doing this since Texas Tech. I think that there's a lot of frustrations with stuff that has nothing to do with gambling or Sorsby, that is all kind of playing out specifically with this school. And if you're going to throw cash around like this, you just have to be comfortable being the bad guy. Nobody was greeting SMU as liberators in 1983 either. Like if you want to live like that, that's fine. It's not even against the rules anymore. But don't expect people to love you and throw a parade for it.
Yeah, well said, Matt. Where can our listeners go find your work, bud?
Folks, you can find my story today on the Big 12 monster deal, as well as all of our other reporting and analysis on the policy that shapes college sports at extrapointsmb.com.
Great stuff as always, bud. Take care. We'll get you back on soon, okay?
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks, fellas. Take care.
Good stuff as always from our guy, Matt Brown. Brought to you today by our friends at the Stansberry Park Golf Course. Explore Tooele County and sponsored by our friends at Tooele County. If you haven't played Stansberry Park Golf Course yet, what are you even doing this weekend? Everyone is talking about Tooele County's historic golf course. That is Stansberry Park Golf Course, and for good reason. It's the perfect combo of challenge and pace and price. Water on almost every hole, greens that roll true, and a layout that keeps you focused and fired up. And get this, you can actually play a full round without spending your whole day there. No long waits, no overpriced greens, just pure golf. Play 18 holes for only $45 on weekdays and $50 on weekends. It's right off I-80, super easy to get to, and a great reason to explore Tooele County, whether you're a weekend warrior or just need to escape the office grind. This is your place. Grab your crew, your clubs, and maybe a few extra balls. Trust me on that one. Book now and experience Tooele County golf at its best. Then stick around and explore Tooele County while you're there. Stansberry Park Golf, great rates, gorgeous greens, all just minutes away. It's totally worth it. Book your tee time now at stansberrypark.gov/golf course. That's stansberrypark.gov/golf course, sponsored by our friends at Tooele County. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. We switch gears. Pablo Mastroeni joins us coming up next on ESPN 700. Semifinals of the 2026 FIFA World Cup will get rolling tomorrow, 1 o'clock, with an absolute heavyweight matchup, France and Spain. And then I read this earlier. I could be incorrect. It is the internet, so who knows? But Lionel Messi, I don't think has ever played against England in his career. Maybe that was just the World Cup, but it'll be England and Argentina coming up on Wednesday. On Wednesday night, Burnley is in town to take on RSL, and the head coach of Real Salt Lake is our guest on a Monday. Pablo Mastroretti. Happy Monday, buddy. How we doing?
Happy Monday, Spence. Doing well, bud.
Appreciate your time. So let's start with the bad, and then we'll move on from there. I don't know really what was reasonable to. I like Belgium's really good, and you know the people that roll around once every 4 years and just wonder like, hey, why aren't we good at this? I'm like, well, sometimes the other team's pretty good too.
Right.
I think I was certainly hopeful that the U.S. men's national team would get by Belgium and then move on, but they did not. So your thoughts on that match, and then just an overall summary of the performance from the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah, obviously it was a tough match, especially from a fan's point of view. And, I think those first few minutes, I think in their previous games where the U.S. had won, they did such a great job of impacting the game early on and making a difference. And in this game was kind of flipped where, Belgium, scored first. And I think that is always, now you're chasing it. And I think all that momentum, all that belief you had built up, kind of in that moment was thrown up in the air, and you just didn't know which way it was going to go. And then obviously some of the mistakes for the goals that they conceded later on just didn't give them really a chance to get back into it, right? I think they were tough goals to swallow, but you got to give credit to Belgium, who on the day, their coach sat, three of their most impactful players on the bench and put in, three guys that were going to graft to compete with the U.S. because the U.S. was, competing on such a high level. So, I think you take it all in, you put in all those variables, and you get what was a difficult game for the U.S. But I think overall, just the way they showed they can play, and now again, it was those three opponents that they had beat were different level opponents than Belgium. Although Belgium wasn't playing as well as they could have, Belgium is still a really, really good team in the world. So. The problem with the World Cup is it's once every 4 years, and it's really three or four games, right? And so you got to catch lightning in a bottle. I thought we were going to catch it just because we had such great fan support. I mean, movie stars were involved in every game, right? Like everyone was tuned in, and I just thought that momentum was going to push us through. But there's a lot of good things to lean on moving forward. I think we're going to capture a lot more fans for the next World Cup and belief, and we just got to keep cracking on. One day it will come. It just wasn't our year.
So I don't know if you heard, but Flo Balogun had a red card and it was rescinded. I'm not sure if you were tuned into the news cycle. And look, here's where I'm at with it, but I just want to kind of give you the space. I don't think it was a red. I think it was the wrong call, when it was made. And so I feel like the right decision really was manifested, but at the same time, it just didn't feel great. I don't know. That's where I'm at. What do you think?
Yeah, it was just kind of strange. I think, some of the decisions that I went through in my career with the national team, and I got a red card in 2006, and they gave me a 4-game suspension. And I thought it was just a 1-game suspension. So some of the things that happened with FIFA are questionable. I don't know all the details as to how they came through with it. I mean, I've heard some stuff, and I think that in the end, I agree with you. That wasn't a red card, and this is, I think, the more poignant question is, how do we fix that, right? Like, how do we get VAR to not freeze frame it and pause it with his ankle turned upside down? Because in real time, if you don't catch that, you wouldn't say that's a red card, and that's why there was not even a yellow card given. So I think we got to do better at that and help alleviate all these issues afterwards.
What sort of effect on the match do you think that had, Pablo, whether it's on the Belgium side or on the U.S. side or Flo himself? Because you had reference, like when the lineup slide came out, I'm like, they're not playing De Bruyne, they're not playing Doku, and then they were bringing Lukaku off the bench anyway.
Right.
Part of me thought, I think I heard somebody say how wonderfully arrogant that is of Belgium to do. I mean, part of me wondered if they did that intentionally, be like, all right, you can go through back channels to get your best striker. We'll sit our 3 best players and we'll still smoke you.
Yeah. No, I think the reason why they made those changes was because they weren't getting the output from De Bruyne and Doku that they wanted, and they knew that against the U.S. team that had 11 guys that were going to work and fight for each other, they needed all hands on deck. And so I think those, De Bruyne at this age of his career is a bit of a luxury, and Doku is very much a one-way player, and so I think the coach did a great job by the decisions he made. But I think going to that game, there's something, there's something you can rally around as the Belgian team and say, like, listen, even when they inquired about this red card and they got it in their favor, we can overcome this, guys. This is the moment where we can overcome. So I almost feel like for the Belgian team, it was actually a positive that Bulligan played. And then for Bulligan in the U.S., I think it was almost like, at least for Bulligan, I think he felt mixed feelings about the whole thing. So I don't think we were going to get his best version of himself. But to be fair, Belgium played really well defensively, and that's why they were able to win that game.
So, a lot of the former players really critical of Christian Pulisic. And as it turns out, it's a serious injury. Like, he's going to be out for a number of different weeks. I've had Ian Joy was my guest on the Talkin' RSL show last week. And, I think he echoed the sentiment that a lot of former players have talked about, at least that I've heard, and that is, you couldn't have dragged me off that field regardless. My leg could have been hanging there, and I still was going to try to play. Injuries are injuries, and they suck. The reality is Christian Pulisic probably has not lived up to the tremendous amount of hype that he's been given, because he's really good and we need him. But he did not have a great World Cup. He has not had great international tournaments, so much so he tapped out of one where a lot of people were very critical. So I just want to know from you what you think is fair to say about him.
Yeah, I think it's really tough, Spence. And the more I think about it, he's between a rock and a hard place. The Tim Howards and Landon Donovans, these guys were his heroes growing up. I mean, I'd imagine Dempsey as well. Like, he's a young kid, and he was watching the U.S. team, and here are your heroes, and I'm sure they have some sort of relationship. But when you hear these people kind of go out in public and they're that critical, yes, in pro sport, you are front and center. This is what you sign up for. I get that. But what if you change the narrative 1 degree and said, listen, we've got to support this guy, man. If you really believe in him, like they say they do, like, I think you have to change the narrative. It can't always be looking for reasons why he's not good enough. Because if these guys were his heroes growing up, how do you think that affects the young man, right? Like, that's the part that gets me. It's like, and having been a former U.S. national team player, how did you like getting ribbed, by the previous generation of players that said it wasn't good enough? Like, so I just think we have to be more human here. And having had walked in the shoes that Christian Pulisic is currently walking in, we've got to have more empathy for the young man. And I think we've got to support him. And in the end, you said it, he was really injured. And so we can talk about our heroism when we were players and all this stuff, but it's our time's up. Our time's here to, like, bring light to the issues. But I think we could be a bit more positive and support these young guys that are navigating the game in a different territory that we had to with social media and all this other criticism that wasn't around when we were around. So, I mean, listen, I think you can make a case for both things. I just wish that as former national team players, they got a job to do from a media perspective. I understand that. But I also think that it's so skewed towards the negative that I think we can really make a big difference by what we say outwardly to support the next generation of U.S. soccer players.
I think that's really well said. A problem is it doesn't get clicks and engagement, and that's the unfortunate part about how I think a lot of these guys are approaching it. And I'm on this side of a microphone. I understand, what you have to do, and you are paid to have opinions, and certainly your broadcast partners want you to have strong opinions, and that leads us into the space where it feels like every 4 years when this happens, where we have a quote-unquote golden generation and we qualify, and then maybe we get to the knockout round and then we lose to a really good team, or 1 year we don't qualify at all. It leads to this dissecting of the entire system and what we need to do to actually at some point maybe do something like you guys did in 2002 or even beyond, whether it's the youth soccer system and the way we develop players and juxtapose that to other countries, whether it's the entire governing body, the leadership itself, or the coach, or the talent level, or what have you. My question to you is, what are some answers we could actually look at and be solutions based to maybe make this thing look different in as little as 4 more years?
I think, again, I don't have, I obviously don't have the answer to that, Spence, but what I will say is the reason why, like, these countries like Uruguay are, and Brazil and Argentina, they've been playing in this World Cup since the 30s. And I know we've been like 1950s. I get that. But like soccer, like, went away in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and it came back late 70s, early 80s, and then it disappeared for another 15 years. So it's not until recent years where we as a country have been like a recognizable soccer country, you know, like, and now legitimate, because now MLS has been around for, you know, 30 years, and like, this is real, this is staying. And I just think that the history, the legacy of these other countries go back so much further, and it's ingrained in their it's a fabric of their culture, and a lot like what I think this World Cup might do for our generation of players. Right? You go to sports bars or wherever you were, barbershop, there was a World Cup game on, and people knew names. They knew the U.S. national team players. It became a thing. Kids are wearing jerseys from all over these. So it's like, finally, I feel like permeated our sports, you know, our sports, the way we think about sports in this country, I hope. And then, like, how do we do it consistently is like getting more players that would typically play football, baseball, you know, basketball, and get those guys playing soccer. And then and we say that, like, the next 4 years, what can we do? I'm saying we still had a chance this year, Spence, and it wasn't from a lack of talent. It was just one game that you had to decide, like, things had to go your way. You had to have the breaks, and you had to be at your best. And we just didn't have it. But we had a team that was good enough, because you watch all these other teams, it's like, well, we could do that too. You know, but we just weren't ready for the moment. It's not to say that we have to change everything we do. We just have to be patient. We have to keep doing these things that we're doing. And then in 2002, like, that was just off the heels of 98. 98 wasn't much of a success, right? And 2002 was kind of like a, you know, flash in the pan type thing. But that's what tournaments are. They're kind of flashes in the pans. But, like, you know, the Brazils, the Englands, and now you have England, Spain, Argentina, and France. Like, these are powerhouses. Like, so there was no underdog story in this World Cup, but, like, we're there, and we won't understand that we're there until we do it. And to be completely honest, and as well as you know, sport is, especially in these tournaments, you need a lot of fortune to go your way. You need a lot. I mean, Argentina shouldn't have won the last 2 games, but however, they're in the semis, right? So, like, we're on the right path. And I just think that the more we try to, like, find immediate answers, the further away we are from actually discovering that we're actually really close. The play's better, the coaching's better, the facilities are better, the environments these players are playing at their club level are better. Like, everything is better, and we're doing it, you know? And so, like, I think we're closer than we think we are. And then as to, like, what do we need? We just need to keep doing everything we do just better. The youth system better. The players going abroad to more clubs. And then, you know, the Gold Cups are important. We need to win those. You know, so I think we're a lot closer than what we are. I think it's so easy to be negative. But I think we're as close as we've ever been as a country to be a top powerhouse. And the other thing too is in 2002. I'm sorry I'm rambling here, but there's so much. 2002, we had one of the most experienced teams, I would say, in the last, I don't know, 8 World Cups. I mean, Ernie Stewart, Kobe Jones, Tony Meola, Jeff Agus, Eddie Pope. Everyone's like 30 years old, 29, 30. Like, everyone was experienced. There's like 5 of us that were under 25 and younger. It was Eddie Lewis, Brian McBride, John O'Brien, Claudio Reyna, Joe Max Moore. I mean, these guys are vets, you know? And so caught football we caught the tournament at the right time with the right amount of experience, the right level of competitiveness mixed with quality, and it's hard to get to that moment and understand that one game can decide whether you're a top team or not, and that's what's difficult about the World Cup.
Well said. And as I often remind you, do not apologize for rambling on a 4-hour sports talk radio show. You're doing my job for me, okay? I want to. So you referenced the coaching, and obviously that's how you make a living now. So analyzing the job of Mauricio Pochettino, and we'll put his oversized dad's shirt from Kohl's aside. The dress left a little bit to be desired. But intertwined in the question is, of course, we're biased here, but what could Diego have given this group? And then just ultimately your thoughts on the job Mauricio Pochettino did.
Yeah, you know what? I think he did a really good job, again, because the amount of negativity pointing towards the national team before the World Cup started was huge, right? It was huge. And the fact that after, the first two games, we had every actor and every other sports fan jumping on the bandwagon, which was amazing. And so a lot of it had to do with the way they started their games. They were very good front foot pressing, winning balls higher up the field. But they were also they were so good in their build phase, but also how vertical they played in their build phase. So it wasn't just possession side to side. It was really McKennie stretching, Pulisic stretching, Bulligan stretching, Dest stretching. And so then teams would drop off. And then they had the quality, whether it was Dest, Bulligan, Pulisic, McKennie, Tillman. These guys could pick you apart in combination play as well. And so I thought the way they diversified their attack, but yet were really aggressive with the way they attacked, was awesome, and reaped a lot of goals in the first, in the group stage. And then again, I think Belgium, I think that was almost more of a psychological game as opposed to a tactical game. Although Belgium did say, okay, we'll let them press, and then we're just going to hit balls over the top and really threaten the back line, which no team in the first 4 games did. Right? Everyone just played for the counter. These guys kept players on the highest line, and their goalkeeper Courtois would just knock balls behind, and then it's off to the races. And so when you do that a couple times, it starts to what it does is make you doubt your press, because if I'm going to sprint all the way up to their goalkeeper to get the ball, and he keeps kicking it behind me, and they keep securing it, I have 60 yards to recover to get with my team. So as a front line attacking group, you're not going to press with the same conviction anymore. And so once they were able to nullify that, Belgium started to control the game with the ball. So I think tactically Belgium played the game really well. And again, if you take away 2 of those goals, or maybe 3 of those goals, Spence, we have a right chance to stay in this game. But, that third goal really sealed the deal, when Freeze came out and that whole bit. So anyways, I think Mauricio did a good job. And again, I think there's some stuff that will continue to improve as he gets to know the group, or as he continues to change the group, because obviously there's some older players, and you got to move on from them and filter in some new guys, which leads us to Diego Luna. And I think that game was screaming for Diego Luna at halftime. So that sub at halftime, for me, if you want a guy that's going to press the right way, that's going to put the team on his back as far as mentality, and really go out defenses the way you need to, a Belgian team, and create overloads and really ask some questions, Diego Luna would have been a perfect fit. And so the one thing I'll say about this experience, Diego's been more committed, more engaged, and this is that he was already committed and engaged before. I'm just saying the level of engagement and the level of commitment has doubled since he's been back, and his quality has shown through. And so I'm really excited for this game on Wednesday. It'll be kind of his first game after the experience, but he's been top level, and I think he's going to be a player that is going to be leaned heavily upon as we go into the next cycle.
So we'll move over there before I set you loose. So I'll kind of intertwine a couple of questions, and then we'll set you loose after this. I can remember when, we brought RSL here in 2004, and Don Garber, when addressing the community, talked about the 2006 World Cup and what that attention could potentially do for the game and the league. So now we fast forward to 2026, where we have a World Cup cycle played on our soil. And the numbers that Fox received have been unbelievable, like through the roof. A record amount of people are watching this sport and this game. Now, nobody is going to, draw a parallel between watching MLS and watching the best, countries in the world play soccer, but there has to be some sort of bump expected. Steve Starks is going to join the podcast tomorrow to talk about just that. From a league perspective, what is MLS hoping this unbelievable tournament? And it is just so cool. I always forget, and then I'm captivated. And then when the days come where there are no games, I'm like, so what do I do with my life? I forgot. Right. So it's such an awesome tournament. So what is the league expecting and hoping that this tournament does for the game?
Well, I think the most obvious one is I think that when the whole world comes over and takes part of the World Cup in the U.S., you get to see the diversity of the fan base. You get to see the infrastructure of all these stadiums, and some of the stadiums obviously don't host games, but you get to see like the level of quality of the different cities, for example, and like where you would live if you played in and I think some of the fear of coming to Major League Soccer, beyond that it's not a top 5 league in the world yet, is that I don't know that I'd enjoy living there. And so I think that's a big thing, especially for players that have families. It's a huge thing. And so I think just having the experience here in the States will allay any of those fears and really make players excited. Salah is a player that's being touted as maybe coming to one of the teams here in MLS. Lewandowski, who's still a top level forward for Poland, who's now coming to, and was at Barcelona coming to. So I think, and the fact that Messi has done so well in this World Cup and he's been playing now in MLS for a few years, I think validates the fact that this is a good league. Like his level has remained the same, if not improved, since coming to Major League Soccer. So a lot of these little things I think will add to the fact that there's and I guarantee you, like after this, they'll watch some MLS games, random games before, as their season hasn't started in Europe yet. They'll watch some MLS and they'll be like, man, they actually play good football as well. And so then they see a Salah, Lewandowski, a Messi, and Casemiro, who's also I think going to Miami. And so these are all big time players for their national teams, right? And so like, once you get 4 or 5 of them, 6 or 7 of them, 10, 11, 12, like pretty soon this league changes overnight. And you know better than I do that it's the TV money that makes the Premier League what it is. And so the more players that we can attract of that caliber to this country on the heels of this World Cup, I think the greater the chances we get to a top 5 soccer nation sooner than later.
All right, my guy. Well, like I said, it's so fun. And part of me goes, let's do this every year. And then it's like, no, that's why it's special that maybe we do it every 4, but it's It's been a lot of fun. Hey, good luck on Wednesday. I'll be out there. I'll try to come say hello. Okay.
Thanks, bud. Great catching up.
Pablo Mastroeni, some really good stuff there for U.S. men's national team fans. RSL in action against Burnley coming up on Wednesday for a friendly, and then they're back at it. And it is an absolute sprint with Leagues Cup and MLS going on. Live in studio, my guy, Dave, America First Credit Union. What's up, dude? How are you?
Hey, it's so good to be back with you, Spence.
I missed you. It's been a number of weeks. Things good with you?
It's been a little bit.
Yeah.
We're finally getting into this exciting time of sports, and we're back, so it's good.
Did you catch any World Cup fever at all?
Yeah, I've been watching it.
Okay.
It's fun.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I
I didn't expect to get caught up in it as much as I have been, but
Yeah.
there's just this excitement. There's
Yeah.
just so much stuff that's going on, and it's obviously good for those loyal fans who are just dedicated and passionate, but it's also good for those passive fans that, it brings some interest.
For sure.
Playoffs are always good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, America First Credit Union. Obviously, you guys do so much throughout the sports ecosystem. So if you're a Utah fan or a Jazz fan or RSL fan, people are probably familiar with you guys. But let's start with a little background. Tell our listeners about America First Credit Union.
Yeah, Spence, we've been around since 1939, and we started with 59 original members that were up at Fort Douglas, up there on the U of U campus, and they just wanted a better way to be able to do their finances. They came together and they said, why don't we, pool our savings together? Let's make low-cost loans to each other. Let's pay each other back. And they found a different way to do their banking than the traditional banking. And honestly, that's the only way that they could survive. Some of the banks just wouldn't touch them. And so this helped meet their basic needs. And that's the philosophy that America First has carried on through the last 87 years, going from their first cash register, which was a Prince Albert tobacco can, to now 118 branches, and being the largest credit union in the state of Utah it's miraculous. And I think our success and our model of success really comes down to doing the right thing and gaining the trust of our members and gaining the trust of our community. And that leads more people to come and benefit from the services.
And one of the things you always talk about that I like to underscore is money is pretty important, okay?
It's very important.
So, let's help you do more with your money, right? That seems to be kind of like the consistent message. Let's help your money start working for you a little bit more.
Yes, yeah. The fundamental principle behind credit unions is the not-for-profit status. Profits that are generated by the organization don't go back to stockholders that live in New York or New Jersey or somewhere else. It goes back into the owners, and each individual member is an owner. And so how do those owners receive the benefits of those profits? Well, it's in lower loan rates, it's in lesser fees, it's in free services, higher dividends, and in their accounts. So that's the value of having the credit union model benefit our community. Utahns love their credit unions. And so it's important that members feel like they're gaining something advantageous for their pockets, for their home budgets, by having that profit go back to them.
And you reference your footprint, and I know it's not just Utah now, but I live in Salt Lake, and I feel like you don't drive very far without being like, hey, there's another one right over there. Like, you guys are all over the place, aren't you?
Yeah. The I-15 corridor is obviously where 70% of our population in Utah is. And so we try and put those branches strategically where our members are going to be able to have good access. We have that approach of high tech or high touch. So that high tech is having good mobile services and good, contact centers that can help you do your self-service. But there are a load of members that still want to come in and go to a branch. And they say, well, that's my branch. I love going into my branch.
Yeah.
My branch knows me. And so placing those branches strategically where members can get that benefit of that eye contact, handshake type of service is really what we pride ourselves in.
Last thing for this segment, we got a lot to do. You'll be with us for the next few hours here for each segment. For listeners out there that are thinking like, yeah, this all sounds great, but man, I'm busy. Sounds like I got to do a lot of paperwork. I don't have time to go into my brand. Like, talk about the process of just simply transferring over and doing business with you guys.
Yeah, a lot of people have that question of like, oh, I don't want to change. I've been with this institution for a long time. I've got my stuff, set up, and to change my direct deposit. We make it very easy and simple because we know that there are some pain points. But the question, Spence, I think is how long are you going to put up with those pain points to pay higher fees or to get, dinged and to not let your money work for you? We truly will make it easy for you in transitioning over your accounts, helping you with your direct deposit, and helping you see how making that change will get your money working for you.
So visit any branch. I'm telling you, you can't drive more than 4 or 5 minutes without seeing one. Visit any branch, go to americafirst.com, or call 1-800-999-3961 to get started. That's 1-800-999-3961. Dave, we'll chat again. Catch a break. More next on ESPN 700. All right, special thanks to Pablo Mastroeni, who stopped by last segment. Some really good stuff there. If you missed it, if you're a fan of the U.S. men's national team, if you're a fan of the World Cup, and if you're wondering, like everybody else, what we need to do to kind of break through, I mean, the days, I think, of accepting just getting to the knockout round and not being able to advance beyond it. I know we won a knockout game against Bosnia, but of course with the expanded field, that just put us into the 16. And watching this tournament unfold, it certainly is a tournament you watch with a lot of enjoyment, but a lot of kind of wishing and hoping that either we are there now or at some point we can get to where these big dog teams are. But we have some great matchups left with Argentina and England. Then, of course, Spain and France tomorrow, which is going to be massive. I want to let you know that Zach Bryan is taking over Rice-Eccles Stadium August 7th. ESPN 700 wants to send you and your concert buddy to the show. Tune into this program around 4 o'clock today, so just in about 20 minutes for your chance to score a pair of tickets. More details at ESPN700sports.com. That's ESPN700sports.com. Our resident Zach Bryan fan, Porter Larson, you're not allowed to win the tickets, pal. We have to give it to a listener.
I'm good. You can have those ones. Actually, legally you can't, but
No, yeah, I cannot. But I mean, I don't know his catalog like you do.
I thought you were a Zach Bryan guy.
No,
Didn't one of your didn't some young in your life get you on the Zach Bryan train?
Let's relax for a second, okay? Here's the cycle. I hear a country song that I'm like, actually isn't bad. I'm going to tell Porter about it. And so I heard a Zach Bryan. It's all the same deal these days.
Mm-hmm.
It's you have to be named Zach or Luke, or there's a Zach Brown, there's a Luke Combs, there's a Luke Bryan. Like they're all like the same dudes singing songs about drinking too much whiskey, and then you bring on Casey Musgraves to sing a verse about please stop drinking whiskey so we can be together.
There we go.
And then everyone lives happily ever after.
You're on to something there. There is a trend.
Yeah.
There is a like a FM radio country lean towards very simple stuff.
Yes.
And that includes the name. Yes, Luke Bryan, Zach, whatever. But some are better than others. Zach Bryan's not bad. Just not my cup of tea.
He is very, very famous, very popular.
And talented. But yeah, like you said, he sings about the same three things in every song and references TikTok and whatnot. It's not my deal.
Anyway, stay tuned in about 15, 16 minutes for your chance to win. Also, coming up this week, you can join us at the Brighton Resort for the first day of the 2026 Women's Disc Golf Championship.
That's what I'm excited about.
Well, I'm doing a radio show, okay, from the Women's Disc Golf Championship on Thursday, July the 16th. Fans can watch the championship live. Just visit our event page on our website for the link, ESPN700sports.com. That's VIP or general admission tickets at ESPN700sports.com. All right, Matt Brown joined us earlier. And Porter, I haven't talked to you about this because you were producing our Big 12 Media Day coverage. And, of course, Sean and I were just kind of doing the show. There really is, and it's somewhat undeniable. And I don't know if it's everybody is mad at Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is mad at the conference because the conference sued them because of the Sorsby stuff. There's a really weird vibe when it comes to whether or not, and look, Brett Yormark in that introductory, I'm running for office or I might open a mega church delivery, whatever that was, he underscored 16 strong over. He was force feeding it down everybody's throats, and I felt like it was pretty obvious as to why. The Cody Campbell quote that I read earlier to Matt Brown, if you missed it, quote, "We don't have a problem with the Big 12. First of all, why are you even saying this? We want to find a way to get all other Big 12 schools to elevate themselves. Everybody needs to do some version of what we've done. That's the path forward for this conference. A rising tide lifts all boats. People not on board with that, and those that want everyone worse so they can be relatively better will have a problem with those institutions." That is a calculated thing to say. And just reeks of a whole. It's like you should be rich like I am.
Yeah. Stop being poor, right? There's a weird hubris coming out of Lubbock, and I think a lot of it is so unforced, right? Like, yes, we've had the drama, we had the scandal with the Sorsby stuff. Again, they just won their first conference championship, so they're riding high a little bit. But you don't have to talk into a microphone. You don't have to speak to journalists every week. You don't have to continue to like put yourself in a position to receive feedback from Big 12 fans or act like you are the messenger for the Big 12 at large. And that is something that Cody Campbell seems to really want to do. You go back to the several days of when the Sorsby scandal was like really heating up, and a bunch of Texas Tech leaders just decided to do a podcast, and it was unforced, it was unneeded,
Yeah,
and it continues to feed this weird feeling around the conference that yes is, I think, kind of focused on Texas Tech right now, but is also not necessarily helped by a commissioner who operates like it's Monday Night Raw or ECW or something, right? There are some benefits to that when you are trying to make money, you're trying to create headlines, you're trying to be the center of attention. But man, the stuff out of Lubbock just seems so unforced and so out of touch, right? Like, you're not necessarily saying the wrong things, Cody Campbell. Like, we know, we understand that money is the game right now. There's no one who is involved in the college football space that doesn't know that. We just don't really care to hear it from you over and over and over and over again in a way that's like kind of condescending and weird. So I don't know. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, and it's odd, as you reference, for a team that just won their first conference championship to be peacocking around like you've owned the thing forever.
Yes,
you know,
indeed.
And look, nobody is under any sort of false pretense as to why you're able to do this. You're outspending everybody in the conference, maybe with the exception of Brigham Young. Hand over fist. I mean, the report is $40 million for their roster, and that's outside of rev share. Like, there are very few teams in the country that are able to hang with that. But to pretend like you've been this, no pun intended, finely, tuned, oiled machine for all these years. No, you just have found a rich donor and a booster that can bankroll your program. And the tendency that they seem to have to look down on everybody else. And then there's a commissioner trying to preach that we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. I'm telling you, the feeling in that building for 2 straight days was straight weird.
Yeah.
It just was.
And awkward. And yeah, as you mentioned, when it feels like they're, and I'm talking about mainly Cody Campbell here, talking down to other programs. Like, you got to do what I do. You got to do what we do. Pay a quarterback who gambles on games $5 million to not play for you.
Yeah.
You want to do that? You want all of us to do that? Okay. Yeah, that's worth one championship in 100 years of your college football existence. It's just, it reeks of hubris. It's nauseating to hear. And again, not always saying the wrong things. In fact, sometimes saying the right things. I just don't care to hear it from your mouth is essentially where I'm at with that guy.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a little dynamic there that is fair to mention, which is, if you're a BYU fan or a Utah fan or a fan of another team in the conference, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a peer who you do need to keep up with because it motivates you to find solutions. And, BYU appears like this Entrada deal, if you look at it, and if you missed it, BYU consummated a deal with Entrada to be their front jersey sponsor for football. This is not like a direct-to-consumer product. These are BYU alums that have a very successful company that just want to help their school. And they have a ton of those people, which is allowing them to come up with some sort of answer to what Cody Campbell is doing. And for Utah, the answer is going to be this partnership with Otro. And as I said to Matt Brown earlier, the creation of Crimson Partners, I had a very powerful person tell me, quote, this has to work. Yeah. And part of that is trying to keep up with what Cody Campbell has done at Texas Tech.
Well, and when you mention that, it has to work. There's an urgency right now around college football, not just because you want to go out and win a national championship or a conference championship, but because we are in such a time of upheaval, such a time of transformative change in college football, what you do now and what you do, I would say from about 3 or 4 years ago when we really saw this stuff to start to change, the NIL, the conference realignment, to about 5 to 7 years from this moment right now, what you do in that time span is going to be really important for the long-term survival of your programs, because it's going to kind of decide where you sit in what I think everyone kind of believes is a new formation of college sports and college football. There will be some sort of landing spot, right, where we're not dealing with a bunch of gray area. It may take, like I said, 5 or so years, maybe less, hopefully less. But once that dust settles, there won't be these opportunities as much to push the envelope, to try new things, to be the first to do something, right? So it really is, as you mentioned, important now for these things to work and for your swings to result in maybe not home runs, but certainly not strikeouts. Because, again, I think that this is a very, very important fork in the road for not only college football as a whole, but also the individual entities therein.
Yeah, and, when you look at what they lost, remember, for all the hubris, you got smoked by Oregon. You couldn't even score. And most projections still have them as the favorite in the Big 12 to win the conference. But I'll tell you what, when you look at, David Bailey, Jacob Rodriguez, Romello Height, Skylar Gill Howard, like all, and I bring them up specifically because Texas Tech last year was the only D-line that actually handled Utah's offensive line in that loss here. Utah's offensive line smoked pretty much any team they played last year, and they had a really tough time with Texas Tech's front, and they basically lost all of them. Now they've gone to the transfer portal, of course, with Cody Campbell's checkbook and pocketbook, but that's a lot of really good players you have to replace, and we'll see how it plays out. Both BYU and Utah avoid Tech in the regular season. All right, Sammy Moore is going to join us coming up next from Ute Zone. But before we catch a break, live in studio, this handsome, charismatic young man named David from America First Credit Union. How are you, my friend?
So good. Great to be in studio with you, Spence.
You're a college football guy, yeah?
I do.
We're right around the corner. And among your great partners are the University of Utah. In addition to the Mammoth, the Jazz, RSL, you guys have a massive footprint in the market. But for this segment, let's focus on summer consumer loans. What should our listeners know?
Well, there's a lot of things that are going on during the summer, and not everybody is in the same direction, going in the same direction. So there's a lot of different things that we have that are going on that will benefit our members. And if you're not a member, come and be a member, and there's lots of things that will incent you. But, when you're thinking about auto loans and the best time to buy a car, who wants to be outside shopping for a car? But a lot of times that's when you need your car is in the summertime. And so we got some great rates, and there's no payments on those auto loans for the first 90 days. And that's huge where, I have a lot of other expenses that are going on. And so being able to get into your car that you need, maybe it's for your kid going off to college or something, but we're going to give you some of that relief and not have you pay for the first 90 days. And you can maybe put that money towards insurance, or maybe you need to get some new tires on that, car, or, something else. So just that payment relief, I think, is really awesome.
And then, in addition, what are some of the other benefits for members to get an America First Credit Union loan this summer?
Well, there's a lot of people who use the summer to do some home remodels, and I'm actually in this boat right now. A big old pod showed up at my house on Saturday, and people are like, "Are you moving?" And I'm like, "Nice to know you." I'm not moving, but we're doing a little remodel ourselves, and so we're putting some of our belongings out in that pod and getting ready for that remodel to start. And so one of the best things you can do is use your equity in your home. You're sitting on a treasure chest of money. If you don't have the money, or you don't want to spend your money in savings, then a home equity line of credit is an awesome opportunity to be able to just leverage that. And so this is a 0% interest rate on that home equity for the first 6 months. So that really provides you with some breathing room while you're doing some of those home remodels, whether that's a $20,000 project or a $100,000 project. Utilizing the equity in your home is awesome.
Tell me about the AFCU Platinum Low Rate Credit Card.
Oh, this is something that we did a little while ago. We keep bringing it back. but it's really good for our members, and so we can give you some 0% on that as well for 6 months. And sorry, I think I got interest rates on the home equity and the Visa.
Sure, yeah.
A little backwards. Home equity is at 3.74 interest rate, which is great, and that applies for that first 6 months. But the Visa is 0% for that 6 months, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
When you think about, so many different expenses that you might have, whether it's college or Christmas shopping or a trip, how do I afford myself a little bit of breathing room? And so that 0% for that 6 months is really, really fantastic.
This also stood out to me. If we have listeners that have loans from other institutions and have rates they're not all that comfortable with, you can maybe help with refinancing some of those loans.
You bet. Yeah, that also works with those balance transfers, where you might have an existing balance somewhere else and you're paying a high interest rate. If you qualify, bring that over. We'll also give you that 0% for 6 months, and that really offers you some payment relief. So yeah, it's a great deal.
So make this summer one to remember. Apply today for a great rate on an auto loan. I believe is it a HELOC loan?
HELOC.
HELOC
Home
loan.
equity line of credit. HELOC.
Oh,
yeah.
It's an acronym.
It is. It's an acronym.
It's not just a hat rack up here. Or, of course, a credit card. These offers are only available for limited time. Visit any branch, go to americafirst.com, or call 1-800-999-3961 to get started. That's 1-800-999-3961 to get started. We'll do more Ute football coming up next with our friend Sammy Mora on ESPN 700. All right, you got to listen to my conversation with Sammy Mora if you want to win some Zach Bryan tickets to hang out with Porter Larson in a suite. We will ask you a question based off of one of Sammy's dynamic answers, which he is bound to give at the end of this segment. Then you'll text in to win at 877-353-0700. Don't forget, in about 27 minutes from right now, Mark Harlan and Matt Webb. Matt Webb is the new CEO of Crimson Brand Partners, and I believe you're familiar with the title that Mark Harlan holds. It is athletic director for the University of Utah. But our friend Sammy Mora from Ute Zone on a Monday. Sammy, how are you?
I'm doing great, Spence. How are you?
I'm well. I appreciate your time. So, of course, we were in Frisco for Big 12 Media Days last week, and I just kind of want to start with like the vibe around the conference right now. I keep describing it as it feels like there's a little like Mean Girls, you can't sit with us vibe right now. Like everyone seems like they're mad at Tech. Tech feels like they're mad at the conference. Your Mark is trying to kind of stem the tide a little bit, make sure everybody gets along. It's just kind of an interesting time right now with this like kind of like catfighting in the Big 12.
Well, I think it's that, but I think it's also just, Tech put themselves on this like pedestal of we didn't do anything wrong with the whole Brennan Sorsby situation. Then they like doubled down, then they tripled down, then they like quadrupled down on it. And when they finally did like throw in the towel, it was only because like so many lawsuits were being threatened. There was so many things going on, and success does things to people. I mean, we've seen like with Utah fans, like that 2024 season was very much a come down to earth moment after, really successful previous seasons and stuff. And success does crazy things to people. And so it was really interesting to see how, Texas Tech fans reacted to it, how Texas Tech media reacted to everything. But yeah, it kind of does feel a little cliquey, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, honestly, this has been one of the more entertaining off seasons that we've had in recent memory because, like, every day it's just like, oh, what lawsuit's going to come up now? But I'm just excited that, like, we're kind of finally in, like, the final stretch towards where we can actually talk about actual football and not what lawsuit is coming down the pipe today.
What is your opinion on the dynamic of the quarterback situation in Lubbock, and does that change the way you view what Tech can be this year?
I mean, I think that we've seen Will Hammond first up close and personal and what he can do to a defense. I think that's one of those few names that's going to like give Utah fans PTSD in the coming years and stuff. There's quite a few of them of backup quarterbacks that have been able to come in and just torch Utah. But Matt Fink is another one that I just remembered at USC. But I think that if Will Hammond is healthy and if he's looking the way that he looked last season, I don't think Tech misses a beat. I think that, their defensive tackle room's a little bit different, and it's not as powerful as it was last year, but it's still a dang good tackle room with what they brought in from the portal and stuff. But if Hammond struggles, if Hammond can't go, then it's a little bit dicier because then you're relying on, I think they have a Tulsa transfer, I think that's where he came from, who's Hammond's backup now. And then if that doesn't work out, then you're down to like high school kids, like freshmen, sophomores, young kids that don't have any experience. So I think this whole season for Texas Tech is going to revolve around the quarterback position. If Hammond can come out and play at a high level, I think they're going to be fine. But if Hammond struggles, if Hammond can't go, if whatever happens with the quarterback position that's negative, then I think it might be a little bit tougher. I'm not going to say it's going to be terribly tougher because Texas Tech has one of the most favorable schedules in the conference this year, but it might not be a blowout every single week for them. There might be some games they're going to actually have to grind out and, pull wins out of nothing with.
Do you agree with them continuing to be placed among prediction odds in Vegas and such as the favorite to win the Big 12 this year?
As of right now, yeah, I'm kind of I did my Big 12 preseason poll right before media days, and I still have Tech as one. I just think that even if Hammond comes out and he's even 90% of the player that he was last year, then I think that they're off to the races. But it's like their non-conference schedule is a big nothing. There's no one of importance in that non-conference slate. They play Houston early in the season, which should be a good test for both teams right away. And I think we'll have a better grasp of what Texas Tech can be when that Houston game rolls up. But as of right now, I'm kind of in the Texas Tech boat of favorites. I think Utah and BYU can both push. I think Houston can push. I think Arizona can push. But it's going to be an interesting one because this Texas Tech game is going to go the way of the quarterback this year.
Yeah, and to your point, we'll see if Hammond is healthy right out of the gates or if they decide to kind of ease the situation in with a bit of a soft landing spot with Abilene Christian and Oregon State. You referenced Houston. They get Sam Houston after that. I heard multiple people at Big 12 Media Days, they are leaning BYU. I didn't hear anyone lean Utah. And it was kind of interesting when we would interview folks from other markets and we'd ask them, we'd say, hey, we're the flagship home of Utah football. What do you make of our new coach? And they would say, no, well, you tell us because we know him as a great coordinator, but we don't know Morgan Scalley as a head coach. And Sammy, as you know, for years, Coach Witt kind of enjoyed the whole like, okay, we're not ranked. Nobody's paying attention to us. And he earned the benefit of the doubt so much so that preseason polls oftentimes would just assume Utah football was going to be good because that's kind of what Witt had built. And now Morgan has to climb that mountain himself. He's kind of starting on this pathway where Kyle eventually built his way up. But what do you make of, one Ute on the preseason Big 12, team and kind of a team that is under the radar a little bit, not getting a ton of attention from folks that cover this conference, at least not yet?
Well, I think the biggest snub I think of the Big 12 preseason teams or whatever you want to call it was Jackson Benny. I think Benny has to be one of the best safeties in this conference so far. I mean, you're already seeing him on draft boards as a potential, safety 1 or safety 2, or I've even seen him safety 3 in this class. People like NFL scouts are already buying into him. People love him. That was probably the biggest snub. I can understand Devin not making it. There's a lot of really good quarterbacks in the conference, especially this year when you have Noah Fafita, you have DJ Lagway, you have Avery Johnson, who even though he's had an up and down career, he's still historically a really good quarterback for Kansas State. So I can understand Devin not making it, but it still felt like a snuff and a disrespect. Same with Wayshawn. Wayshawn's one that should have made it. I get the lack of defensive players, especially because people think that like Utah's defense is going to be not great this season, especially based on like the run defense that was there last season towards the end. I get that. I get people questioning Utah's offensive line because they're replacing all 5 starters. I get the questions, but as someone who's been up on the hill watching practice, talking to people, talking to players, figuring out what's going on inside the program, like I think it's okay that this team's going to be slept on a little bit. It's just going to be fuel to the fire and motivation. And, Morgan said in his scrum with us on Wednesday at Media Days, he said that he's out to win games. Like, he doesn't care. He's not here to prove anything. He's not here to do anything or win any opinions. He's just here to win football games. And I think that if he can get out there and win football games, especially in this first season, with a very favorable schedule, that's just going to set him up for success. Because if you can do it as a first-year head coach where people are doubting you and you're already replacing a heck of a lot of talent on the offensive line, half the coaching staff left, the previous coaching staff left, key players left as well. Like, if you can do it now, I think that you can do it again. I think that's the way I want to phrase it. I'm trying to figure out how to properly phrase what's the thoughts that are flowing into my mind right now. But I get it. I'm okay with them being underrated. I'm okay with them being slept on. Utah has always thrived being an underdog and having a chip on their shoulder. And, if anything, I think that's just going to motivate Morgan and this team to, just come out and just handle business this year. Like, leave no trace of a doubt. Like, if you want to be considered one of the top contenders in the conference and one of the top contenders nationally, you need to win. And if you can do it when people are doubting you or not looking and sleeping on you, then that's a great position to be in.
Yeah, and on the other side, I felt some tangible, uncomfortable feelings from Kalani and BYU that they're now where Utah was not that long ago, because BYU is now getting more of the benefit of the doubt. And yes, they returned a ton in the preseason offensive player of the year. LJ Martin won the award last year, and Bear Bachmeier, and the entire thing. I get it. But it's kind of interesting dichotomy where now BYU is kind of getting that benefit of the doubt that Utah used to get. So Kalani can't use that chip on the shoulder thing. Well, Morgan can. I just find that kind of an interesting dynamic now.
I do, and I'm personally, I have slight questions about BYU this year. Jay Hill did a lot for that defense. Like, I'm talking a lot for that defense. And I know that, a lot of the defensive staff stayed. Gary Anderson is still around. Key pieces are still around. But how much of Jay Hill, like that high-level defense that BYU had, was because of Jay Hill, the person, and Jay Hill, the scheme? I don't know what type of scheme Papinga's going to put in, if it's going to be similar to that of Hill's. I haven't had any conversations with anyone on that front, but I have slight reservations about how BYU's defense is going to be this year. Like, there's no doubt there's playmakers on that defense. Isaiah Glasker, Keanu Tanavasa, Evan Johnson, Falutau Satuala. There's a lot of good guys on that defense, but is the scheme going to be enough to put them in a position to win games again? Because if their offense is humming on all cylinders, but their defense can't stop anything, then, BYU might not be in the position they were in last year. And that's just, I want to see what the Papinga defense looks like before I, say that BYU is the odds-on favorite to win the Big 12 or whatever.
You guys had a quote in a really good piece on these players deciding to come back to play for Utah December of 2025, when all the chaos with Witt came down. And it's hard, even as a media member, to look back on that. It feels like some sort of fever dream. It was such a weird thing. But the quote that got a ton of attention was from Devin, where he said, quote, "Now that I'm healthy, now that I got a coach that I love, I got an OC that looks after me as well. Like just all that now that I see it, I'm blessed to be in the situation. I'm happy to have an opportunity to showcase it every Saturday." I think some people took that, Sammy, as a shot at Witt and maybe Jason Beck. I don't know that that's how I read it. I think he was just being more complimentary of the current staff. I could be wrong. I don't know. But unpack this piece a little bit, and we'll tell people where they can go find it a little bit later on, because I thought it was really interesting as far as all these players kind of going through this, like, wait, what's going on? And then ultimately deciding to come back and play for Morgan.
Well, I think the biggest thing, that stood out was Lance Holtzclaw. He said that a lot of the players found out that this was all going down when they were in the airport. Because if you remember, this got announced on December 26th. Like, Kyle announced he was leaving then. And at that day, that was the day that all of the players were in their home airports flying to Vegas for the Las Vegas Bowl, because Kyle had sent them all home for Christmas. And, it kind of puts things into perspective when these players are finding out, when you hear that these players are finding out about their coach leaving at the airport, when they still have another game on the docket, they still have another win to possibly get. That stood out to me. Lance also said that, it was a sore thumb if you weren't on the same page. And that made it sound like, there were guys that were already checked out as soon as, Morgan took over. And we never got names on who those guys were. I don't think we ever will. But it might be, people that might not be with the program anymore, because why would you stay at the program if you're already checked out when the head coach that is taking over is coaching you in a bowl game? And I understand people say, well, bowl games don't matter and stuff like that. Like, no, if there was one bowl game that was so important to a program, it was this Utah one. Because one, it got Morgan's feet wet. It got him his first head coaching experience before the season started, which honestly, I would rather have had him started at a bowl game than start, beginning of this season, because now he's had that one experience. And if he would have lost the bowl game, yeah, it would have been kind of meh, but at the same time, it wouldn't have derailed an entire season. Whereas if he would have come out this year, if they come out this year and let's say, God forbid, they lay an egg versus Idaho, that's going to be a mark on that team immediately. There's no playoffs, there's no postseason if you lose that first game. And so I think getting those first game jitters out of the way, as chaotic as it was, I think was a good thing. It helped guys that were going to be in different positions play. That offensive line that we saw in that bowl game, a good handful of those guys that started in that bowl game are probably going to be starters this fall. Colton Swan had some added experience and some added responsibilities in that bowl game. You're seeing guys that might not have played as much play some more in the bowl game that are probably going to play this season. So I'm honestly looking, like you said, it was a fever dream. It really felt like that. Like, I lived at least 6 lives in that month where everything happened. And it's just looking back on it now, it's like it's kind of crazy how everything went down. But that story was it's really interesting. Like especially Wayshawn saying that after the bowl game, like he cried and Morgan was there to console him. Like that says words too, that Morgan was willing to take some time out of what was a very chaotic month and a half for him and console one of his players that was, going through it. So yeah, that was looking back. I think as we get more time away from December, I think you're going to start hearing more and more of what actually happened, like internally with players specifically, which, it just adds an extra light to this whole situation.
I want to follow up about Devin, and we were able to catch up with him at Big 12 Media Days. He looks good. He's a real charismatic kid. He's got it. Whatever that thing is, he's got it. My question is it reasonable to ask for more from him this year? I mean, look, he also, at least for me, for the first time, was very candid and honest about his health a year ago. And look, you watched all the games. You're at all the games. I think it was pretty easy to see when he was fully healthy compared to when he was not, because it was much different. But we're talking about a kid who led the conference in QBR last year, 24 touchdowns, 5 picks. And he is playing in a new offensive system, albeit for an offensive coordinator that seems to believe in similar concepts as his old one. But is it even reasonable to expect more from Devin this year based off of how dynamic he was a year ago?
Yes and no. I think it's smart to maybe hope and expect to see a little bit more in the passing game. With the amount of weapons that are on this team, there's no reason to say why Utah shouldn't be throwing the ball around a little bit more. Like I had a conversation with somebody while I was in Dallas that, Creed Whittemore, he's probably wide receiver 3 on last year's depth chart. This year, he's probably wide receiver 6 or 7, just with the sheer amount of depth and talent that they have in that wide receiver room. And so I think that, you can expect a little bit more. I hope that we can expect a little bit more out of the passing game from him. I'm not saying that he's going to throw for 5,000 yards, which is insane, but I think you're going to see a little bit more. You're going to see some more usage with different wide receivers. There's not just one wide receiver that defenses are going to be able to bracket and say, okay, everyone, we're going to sell out for this guy because after we stop him, there's no one else to throw to. From spring practices and from what I've heard, this is a wide receiver room that people should buy stock in. Like they have the potential to change the game. And will Devin be able to throw the ball a little bit more downfield this year since he's not injured? That's also the hope. That was the one thing that was lacking from Devin's game last year was the lack of deep ball. But if he can get in there and throw the deep ball and throw it accurately and throw it precisely and, convert some chunk yardage plays, I think that we're going to see that's the last piece that was missing with Devin. And I think that if you can add that deep ball with his already amazing making ability, whether it's throwing on the run or running the ball, I think that that's a successful season for Devin.
24 touchdown passes, 10 rushing touchdowns. That's 34 touchdowns for you math experts out there. Sammy, more or less than 34 total touchdowns for Devin Dampier this year?
Mm-hmm. I want to say more, but then I also am I kind of think about it. I'm like, well, if you think about it, Bird took some of Dev's rushing touches away when he was hurt, especially in because he didn't even play in the Colorado game. So there's some running touches that Devin lost. There's a couple of, touchdown plays that could have been passing touchdowns. So I'm going to say more, but not by it's not going to be double or triple. It's probably going to be a handful, not a lot, but
That's
it'll
fair.
be more.
That's fair because that's a big number. You referenced Bird, and look, we have learned the hard way that you got to have at least 2 quarterbacks. Some years you might need 5. And obviously with bringing both of them back, there has to be some sort of plan in place to make sure they're both utilized. I mean, that's just basic common sense, right? What are you anticipating with the way this new offensive system will look utilizing both of these quarterbacks?
I think it'll be similar to what we saw last year. I think that there's going to be, there might be some small wrinkles, but I think that for the most part, what we saw last year is what we might get this year. You can't not say that Bird is dynamic as well. Bird is also a very dynamic quarterback, whether it is throwing the ball or running it. And so I think we're going to see a lot of the similar stuff we saw last year. Might see a wrinkle or two, but like you said, if anything, Utah, one of the core lessons Utah fans know is if you don't have a good backup quarterback, you're probably in a bit of doo-doo because, you can't go a full season without having a suitable backup. That was one of Utah's Achilles heels for so many years, and I think that, we're in a really good position right now with Bird and Dev. Both are really good. They both play the same way, so it's not like you go from having a dual-threat quarterback to a plank in the pocket who can't run. No, they have very similar skill sets, so it's not like the offense is going to have to be completely changed for one that for each of them. But similar as we saw last year, but we might see a few more little wrinkles.
Sammy, thank you for saying doo-doo. This is a family-friendly program, so for the kiddos in the car, you kept the language clean. I appreciate that. Wayshawn, also live at Big 12 Media Days. First of all, phenomenal grill. He's got a great grill going on currently. Sammy, have you ever considered a grill? I think you might be able to pull that off.
I had braces for a substantial amount of my life, so I'm good.
Okay, fair enough. So he talked about this a year ago, his desire to be the bell cow, his desire to be the guy. And of course, there's a Daniel Bray element here. There are a lot of playmakers on the roster, and we'll see what Kevin McGivern's offensive system looks like. But any chance that maybe – because, look, he averaged 6.6 yards per carry. There were some games where he's averaging 10 yards per carry. So I'm sure he would like to be more featured. Do you think we're going to see that this year?
Most likely. I think it's going to be Wayshawn 1, and then you might see a sprinkling of Bray and Steve Chavez Soto when Wayshawn needs a break. But for the most part, I think this is Wayshawn's running back job to lose at this point. I mean, Morgan even said that they had to reel Wayshawn in spring because he was just going all out. And if that's not the sign of some player that's hungry and determined to win and to set these 1,000-yard marks that he wants and stuff, I don't know what is. So I'm safely betting that it's going to be that Wayshawn's probably going to have him and Devin are probably going to be 1-2 in carries this season because Devin's going to get his, but Wayshawn's going to be RB1 and he's going to be a bell cow back. And there might be situations where you see Bray and there might be situations where you see Steve, but for the most part, it's going to be Wayshawn.
Are you on board with this narrative that, and this comes from Morgan himself, who played on a team with some really good wide receivers, out of Morgan's mouth, Big 12 Media Days here on this station, this is the deepest and best wide receiver room that Utah football has ever had. Is that hyperbolic? Are you on board with that?
I said today over on the Ute Zone board that I think this is probably one of the most talented wide receiver rooms that I've ever seen Utah have. I lived through some decent wide receiver rooms. I think probably one of the best ones that I can remember off the top of my head was a Drez Anderson-led wide receiver room, but that was over 10 years ago at this point. I honestly think that this is probably the best wide receiver. I don't want to say of all time, but I'm probably going to say of the 2000s, this is by far the best wide receiver room at least I've seen.
Obviously offensive line, and it was interesting to get the take of some of these players who know them a lot better than we do because they're practicing against them, they're going up against them week in and week out, and it just continues to be the thing. Like Lance Holtzclaw himself, who obviously plays on the D-line and has experience going up against the guys from a year ago, the 5-man unit that we all talk about and always will talk about for how historically good they were. Your confidence level that this new group can replicate some of, it's unfair to say all of, what the group did last year, though. What does that sound like, Sammy?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being they play, this year's offensive line plays at the level of last year's offensive line, and 1 being they can't stop. They're like a wet paper towel. They can't stop anything. I honestly am kind of trending in the 7 range right now, 6 to 7. I think it depends on where I'm at and what day it is and, how the wind's blowing and, random factors like that. But there's a lot of guys on this line that have played a lot of football. They haven't started, but they've played a lot. Folatoa Moiai has played a lot of football for Utah. Keith Olson has played a lot of football for Utah. Zero A. Williams has played a lot of football for Utah. Alex Harrison played a lot last year, especially when, they took the starters out. Cedric Jefferson, obviously, he played at national champion Montana State. He's played a lot of football. I think there's a lot of guys that have played football, but they just need to get on the same page in terms of cohesion. And they need to be on the same page with Devin. And they need to be on the same page with, Wayshawn and the rest of the running backs and stuff like that. And, I think Jordan Gross is from what I've seen this spring, I like the way that Gross approaches coaching his offensive linemen. He's not one of those coaches that just kind of stands there and tells them what to do. No, he got in there and he will physically show them what they need to do to be successful and to fix the errors they're making. And I think that's key. That's key for especially a position like offensive line, and especially a line that is new and that they're all working together for the first time together. So I think that this offensive line is going to be good, but they're not going to be last year good. But they're still going to be one of the better offensive lines that we've seen Utah have.
All right, before I set you loose, we had your buddy Dan Sorensen on a couple weeks ago, and he gave a very thoughtful response to this question. I want to ask you the same because, there's part of me at times, I can get a little eye-rolly when I hear people talk about culture, because oftentimes it feels like culture is talked about after a team starts winning, but obviously you want good culture in order for success to follow. And Morgan just hits it over the head every time there's a microphone in front of him, with us when he was addressing the media. And then the players, as I referenced through the article you guys wrote, talk about the culture that brought them back to play for Morgan and play for Utah football. Now that you've had a number of months since the transition where Morgan is now the guy, how do you define it as far as what he's trying to lay out there?
This is going to be stereotypical. It's like that RSNB culture, that relentless, smart, nasty, ball hawk culture. But at the other token that's not really spoken about as much is the family aspect. I've talked to so many players, and whether it's recruits, guys that are currently on the team, recruits that didn't commit to Utah, recruits that are committed to Utah, it's the family aspect that is as something else. Morgan cares about the people in the program, whether you are his starting quarterback or whether you are a walk-on safety who might not ever see the field. He cares about you the same way. He knows he asks you about how you're doing. He asks how your family's doing. It's a big family atmosphere. And, Wayshawn referred to his teammates as his brothers, and that why would he leave his brothers? Lance has said the same thing. Many, 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 many players have all said the same thing. This is a family. Why would I leave? And I think that, the on-field culture is that RSNB. But this is a family culture that, it had been present for the last few years of Kyle's tenure. But to a certain extent, it feels like instead of it being at 100%, that family aspect had been turned down to 80, 75 maybe in certain years. But I feel like with Morgan, that family aspect has just been cranked all the way back up to 150, because at the end of the day, these kids are bigger than football. And I think that's something that Morgan really, really, really focuses on with his athletes, is turning them into great men as well as great football players.
Sammy, where can people go find your work, my friend?
Utezone.com, over on the On3 and Rivals Network for our second full month now we're getting into. We are running a 50% off your first year subscription. Come join one of the greatest communities of Utah fans on the internet. We're going to have a lot of fun content as fall camp gets ready to start. I'm trying to think of what else. Follow us on Twitter at Utezone.com, or on Twitter at Utezone. You can follow me on Twitter at S_Mora3. And yeah, just if you like Utah athletics, if you like Utah football, you should be at Utezone. We're the only fan site that was at Big 12 Media Days last week, so we had a bunch of exclusive content. And yeah.
Great. Sammy, great stuff as always. Thanks for the time. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Spence.
All right, Sammy Mora from Ute Zone. She told you all of her touch points. If you're a Ute fan, the Ute Zone is a one-stop shop for you. All right, live in studio, my friend Dave, America First Credit Union. Dave, it is summer. Okay, fall's on the way. Fall means football. Summer means baseball. You have a very handsome Salt Lake Bees debit card in front of you. It is a good-looking card. Tell us about it.
Tell me what you think of that, Spence.
Beautiful. You got a black background, and you've got the Bees logo. So it's very sleek. You had the Jazz card in last time. We got the Bees card this time.
Yeah, America First is very proud to partner with these awesome organizations, whether it's professional sports or collegiate sports or minor league baseball. We love the partnerships. And so this card just came out just less than 2 weeks ago. It's this black matte finish. It's got Bumble on there. You got some detail there with the honeycomb. It just looks sleek. And so if you are a baseball fan, there's no better way to show your pride than with gear and with merchandise. And this just goes in your wallet and complements that stuff. So this is one of those cards that's another limited edition that we have. You don't know if it's going to go away, how long it's going to be around. And so it's just a cool piece to be able to have in your wallet. And what I love about this is this fits all the traditional aspects of a Visa debit card, where you access it's connected to your checking, but it's accepted worldwide, just like a Visa card would be. It comes with all of the other protections and benefits that all of our other Visa debit cards have, with Card Guard and payment protection and fraud protection when you get an upgraded checking account. But I love the value that this offers for families when you go to see games. It's packed with a ton of different features and benefits that you get exclusively with this card.
And if it's the same deal with all of your other partners, right? Like at the U, you get special ticketing offers. Same thing with RSL. Same thing with the Jazz. So if you're a sports fan on our market, chances are you've got a partnership with a company where you get merch discounts, food and bev discounts, right?
Yep, you got it. Yeah. We're very proud to be out there in Daybreak. And the ballpark at America First Square is just a central hub for family entertainment, including that baseball. And so when you use your card there, you can get half-price lawn tickets on those Wednesday home games.
Nice.
There's a lot of people that love to sit out there and be out in the field and just watch it from that perspective. But like you said, you can also get 10% off concessions out there at the ballpark. You can get 10% off your total purchase at the merchandise and the apparel stores. You get early entrance to some of those games, and also some preferred parking, limited.
Huge.
It's awesome. You can park up right up nice close. One of the things that I love is Dirty Diet Cokes.
There you go.
And so we've partnered with them out there, and you get 25% off your swig purchases at the ballpark, which is super cool. And then there's other concessions where you can get 25% off, more than that 10%. And probably one of those things that I really love is they do different events besides baseball, and so you can get some pre-sale opportunities for concerts and special events out there at the ballpark. So that card is just packed with a lot of great stuff. It's free. It's free if you have a checking account, so why not?
There you go.
Right.
Dave, tell us about the direct deposit campaign to make your payday effortless.
Yeah. Direct deposit is one of those things that's so convenient. I remember having to cash a check when I was, earning
absolutely.
some money, right?
And you're like terrified you're going to lose it? Yeah.
Or am I going to make it to, my financial institution time, before it closes?
Yep.
And so having direct deposit is definitely a value for you as an employee. And, you sign up with your employer to get that done. What's nice about that is we pride ourselves in being a primary financial institution, which I think is important to understand what that means. It means that I have all of my stuff in one place, where it's one password, one login, and I can see all of my accounts. So I can see my savings, I can see my spending. I match that with my credit cards and my loans, and so that having that direct deposit is one of those key elements to keep track of your spending. And I would say, Spence, that spending right now is at an all-time high, and debt is at an all-time high, and I think it's because people lose a little track of where their spending goes.
Yeah.
So having your money come into the place where you're going to be spending it is important. So that direct deposit just takes that stress off of knowing where your money goes and where it sits.
So enroll in direct deposit today and make payday effortless. You can set it up through online or mobile banking. Visit a branch or contact us for assistance. Here are the touch points. Again, there are branches everywhere. Okay, all you have to do is pay attention. Oh, there's one right there, and then drive 5 more minutes, and then there's another one.
The 5-iron away.
It is, well, it depends on the day. Okay, It was a good day today. But so visit any branch, go to americafirst.com or call 1-800-999-3961. That's 1-800-999-3961 to get started. Also, I teased that I was going to do this, so let me be a good host and not forget. If you want to go hang out with Porter in a suite to see Zach Bryan, He's shaking his head. Zach Bryan is taking over Rice Eccles Stadium on August the 7th. More details at ESPN700sports.com. How many touchdowns did Devin Dampier have last year? Text in 877-353-0700. All right, coming up next, Mark Harlan, athletic director, and then the new CEO of Crimson Brand Partners, Matt Webb. You're gonna learn a lot about this new project, so keep it right here on ESPN 700. All righty. We are back. It's episode 17 of Reality Check with Spence Checketts. Appreciate your time. The man to my right is very jealous. He does not have an AI rendering of himself. I can see the look on his face. Very excited to be joined in studio by the athletic director from the University of Utah, Mark Harlan. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. You look better in person than that thing.
You think so?
You look a little stressed out in that AI deal.
Okay, I feel like I'm
That's
way
my
more
concern.
stressed out in person, but I appreciate your time and excited to welcome in the new CEO of Crimson Brand Partners. Time to get to know Matt Webb. What's up, man? How are you?
Good. How are you?
Really good to see you. So we're going to start with Matt because we all know Mark. We've known
right.
Mark for a while. So welcome to Salt Lake, you and your bride and your 3 boys. So I want to let our community get to know you a little bit, like just a little background, how you got into sports. You've been on the pro side for 20 years, and then we'll kind of get into how this all came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I got to town last Saturday. We're driving from Denver and we go down Foothill, and my boys look to the right. They're like, look at the mountains. Like, oh my gosh, the mountains are on fire.
Yes, they were. They sure were.
So that was the first.
Yeah.
We come from a flat place in Louisiana, so mountains and then mountains on fire don't exist down there. But it was new. It was great. We're so happy to be here. If you wanted the background, I'll start with grew up in Jacksonville, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball guy. Played baseball in school. Went to Davidson College, North Carolina. Played ball there. Did not make it pro.
Mm-hmm.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Right?
You went as far as you could.
I went as far as
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah.
My body would not let me go any further. And so when I was in school, I had no idea what I wanted to be. And I talked to one of my professors, and he's like, let me introduce you to somebody who works in sports, and maybe they can help you. That guy was Tyler Epp.
Okay.
Tyler is now the head of the Cadillac F1 team.
Nice.
And so Tyler, he was the GM of a race team in Charlotte. So Davidson is 30 miles north of Charlotte. And for 2 years, he would come and meet with me once a month, just have breakfast, just mentor me. And it was incredible. So he encouraged me to take a job in NASCAR so I could learn marketing, learn advertising, learn how that works. And so I did. So I did that and in Charlotte for a couple of years. And then he went to San Diego.
Okay.
He became the VP of partnerships out there. I was lucky enough to follow him out there, where I worked under some incredible people. Tom Garfinkel was the president at the time. He's now running the world in Miami, and an amazing mentor, amazing salesperson, amazing leader and executive. Brent Stellick was the CRO at the Padres at the time.
Okay.
So I had Tyler, I had Tom, I had Brent, and I had no idea how great these people were, but I had an incredible base. Couple years down the road, Brent left to go home to Cleveland, and he was the CRO of the Cleveland Browns. And he took me with him.
Okay.
So I went from San Diego to Cleveland. Everyone called me crazy. Never, I think I'd seen snow twice in my life at that point.
Okay.
So I worked for the Browns for 5 years. Alex Shiner was our president there.
Sure.
So you had Alec, you had Brent. I'd already worked with Tom, and I tell people, working in Cleveland in the years I did, so that would be 13 through 16, half of 17, or a little bit in 17. That will teach you how to sell.
Sure. Yeah.
So just to paint the picture, this guy named LeBron came back to town.
That worked.
That was pretty good for them, pretty tough for us.
Sure. Yeah.
The Indians take the Cubs to Game 7 of the World Series.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then just down the road, you had Urban Meyer winning championships, and when we would go to meetings, these brands would tell us, no, we already have a deal with a professional team in Ohio.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the Buckeyes.
Right.
So learn pretty quickly.
Yeah.
How to sell the right way. And anyway, so 5 years, 5 great years there, built great relationships. And then I had the opportunity to take over revenue down in New Orleans with the Saints and Pels. So I was there for 9 years.
That's really, so Major League Baseball, NFL, and pro basketball experience. That puts you on.
Don't forget
NASCAR. You might be one of one. I was going to say that's a small list. It might be the only list. Mark, when you joined the radio show a couple of weeks ago, I went back and listened to it. And because in the moment, it's kind of hard to really take much from it.
In your Knicks jersey.
In my Knicks jersey. Go Knicks. We actually won the championship, which is wild. You said on 3 separate occasions that one of the things you were motivated by and excited for are new operators, right? I mean, everybody talks about the cash infusion and the money, But cash and money aren't worth anything if you don't have good people around you that know what to do with it. So tell me about this guy. When did you first become familiar with him, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah, first of all, I think that's the key to everything is the people that you surround yourself, or as Matt just described, the people that you learn from growing up in your career. But yeah, a big part of why we are here today with Crimson Brand Partners is as we analyzed everything, we knew that there was certain revenue goals that we had to hit to really make the department function at the way that it deserves for our student athletes and certainly for our community. And we just need to get better.
Yeah.
And I think we also needed to recognize where the industry is going. You know, you've made it very clear on your show for many years, as I've listened to you, that we're making a lot of money particularly in the area of college football. And so locally we had to figure out how do we best, monetize, but also improve our customer service. So that's why we were so attracted to this model. And we were only going to be attracted to the model if the people that led it were operators.
Right.
At the time, I did not think, that we'd get the kind of high experience that Matt and some of the other people that he's recruited in these different parts of the organization. But that's really what attracted us to it. Now, when we worked with cutting the deal with Alec and his team, Matt came to us pretty shortly after, as we really realized we thought the yellow lights were kind of coming off on the overall deal and the green lights. So we were really introduced to Matt probably the beginning of the academic year is when we first started meeting. I think we met out here and then in New York a few times. And I realized quickly that he had what it takes to be a great leader, fit in the community with his family and fit in with my team and share a lot of the same values, the folks that I've interviewed all those folks too. So it's been fun to watch these guys come together.
Yeah. Matt, I wonder, as we get into the space of generating revenue, that's your background, right? That's what you've done at every stop. And Mark, as I said, was on the show a few weeks ago. And, no one is under any other illusion that the job of a front-facing entertainment business is also generating money. What sort of added benefit do you think you bring to the table as you look for creative solutions to generating revenue?
Yeah, well, let me start with, I don't even think I could spell private equity before I got here, right?
Yeah.
And so I am an operator at heart. And really everybody at Otro, right? They're all operators.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Alec has run a business, Brent's run a business, Frasco. We've all run businesses. And so that's what I'm going to bring here. Bring their expertise and going to combine it with mine. And I think, the university sector, if you look at it holistically, it's just not set up to be profit motivated.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have those things in place. And so that's why you see so much outsourcing, right? At any given time, you have someone else who's selling your tickets, most likely.
Yeah.
Someone else who's selling your sponsorships, most likely. Someone else who's probably managing the rest of campus, activation and sponsorship. And so for us, we looked at this very decentralized, demotivated structure and said, okay, if we just centralize that, right? What does that do? Just that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with our pouring partner, Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
And after the meeting, one of the guys on our team pulled me aside. He's like, I've never been in a meeting with those folks. I was like, oh, the people from Pepsi, that's pretty easy to do. And he's like, no. The folks on our side.
Huh.
I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, we had the campus represented. We had, our MMR rights partner represented. Yeah. We had, the CBP team represented, and we had athletics represented. And that has not happened. And that's not just a myopic thing with University of Utah.
Sure.
That's a generalization across the board. And so I think as universities continue to learn how to drive revenue, I think centralization is key.
Yeah.
So when you ask, what are we going to bring to the table? I think it's some of those things. It's just the easy answer is we're going to professionalize college sports.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. That's the goal. But how? It's that, right?
Yeah.
And having a single mission that everybody adheres to.
And I was just going to say, Matt, that this is really important. This gets to why are we first? I think there's a lot of reasons. I think it starts with our president and board, of trustees who are forward-thinking, innovative folks. Certainly our president exemplifies that. I think we've seen a lot of companies set up outside of the university, but they didn't come with operators. They kind of moved just the existing folks over. But it also gets to that key ingredient that I've really been talking to people about. It's not just signage anymore. It's not just radio ads. No offense. It's not just those things.
Radio ads are still a big deal, Mark.
Let's go. I know. It pays your bills. But it's the university as a city almost, and the different assets that can be partnered in a deep way. And so it takes a leadership team like Taylor and our trustees to not be afraid to look at these opportunities and not be worried about, well, where did the money go? Where does it go to? It's just, let's all work together in this day. I mean, athletics at the end of the day on every athletic department really has gone away from being kind of a revenue resource area to it's like all the other units now who are fighting to just hit that equalized number. And so it needed something bold. I imagine if the calls that I get are any indication, we'll see more of this type of model going forward. But again, we needed people that had really worked on deep partnerships like this. And this is what we get in Matt and his team.
Let me follow up. You already had a full-time job. It was the athletic director. Were you looking for a side hustle? Because you're also the chairman of the Crimson Brand Partners. So how has your world changed, and how will it change as you also will oversee the new endeavor?
Well, my wife told me to do the dishes last night. So wait a minute, I'm the chairman. And she said, go clean up the dang dishes. I think it's going to be great because we have to collaborate on all different levels, right? And there's a board that's being finalized. It's been a great group of people who can really look in, lean in, and obviously, work together cooperatively to make sure Matt and his team has. But from the chairman perspective, but also really, and Matt knows this, is just it shows at the end of the day, I'm involved in these things and making sure that the decisions are great for revenue, but they're also always great for the University of Utah. So we'll be working closely on that. But it's interesting because I do want to say on your that the emails now about the stadium, if you don't get your Pepsi on time, send them to you, right?
Right.
Matt?
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you get emails about soda?
If there's anything that people take away from listening to this, reroute the email.
Call me.
Call Matt.
So Matt, you are kind of zigging when a lot of people are zagging.
Yep.
I'm not going to say a mass exodus from college sports to pro sports, but 4 years ago, Dusty May was coaching FAU. Then he just won a national championship, and now he's coaching Cooper Flagg and the Dallas Mavericks. Saban leaves. We could go down the list. You go from pro to college. Tell us why.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you just put me in the same context as Saban and May.
Yeah, when I think Saban, May, I think Matt Rudd, man. Those are the three names.
Yeah. What's funny? So I get asked this question a lot. Mm-hmm. I think maybe the cleanest answer is one, it's the last frontier, right? And if we can solve this, we've really done something. But I think as I reflect on really, let's just say my last 9 years in New Orleans, mm-hmm. My team, we had an amazing team, and we did some great things, right? We named the Caesar Superdome, right? We did the first ever ticketing deal with SeatGeek. The NFL had never gone there. It was, Ticketmaster forever, and we opened that door, and we did jersey patches on the pedals. We do all these things, and I sit back and I'm really proud of those things. But that had zero impact on the on-court and on-field performance of our team, right? It literally changed nothing. It was a different name on the building, but it changed nothing about our performance. Whereas here, or in college in general, the more success we have, the more money we can infuse into the athletic department to actually have success. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that to me is incredibly powerful. It's a great recruiting tool. It gives you deeper meaning, right? In what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. And it allows you to wake up with a little more sense of purpose than we did before.
No, I like that. Mark, let's have some fun with college football, because I promise you any Utah football fan that finds out you're on the show, like, hey, you better talk Utah football. And I want to talk to Matt about this as well. Big 12 Media Days coming up. 8 recruits for the next cycle already locked in. So Morgan talking about the local recruiting footprint and backing it up with a couple of signings yesterday. Brendan Sorsby will not be playing quarterback for Texas Tech. You and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago. Look, the schedule seems manageable. You get BYU at home. You avoid Tech. You kind of read some of the stuff about the reimagined Big 12 with Tech's issues. As you look to the fall, what excites you the most about Morgan's first year as head coach?
Just the preparation, from the moment I called him on December 26th to say, hey, you want to coach the bowl game? From that moment on to where we even sit this morning, I had a chance to even visit with him this morning. It's all gas, no brakes. It's been incredible off season, changing some of the conditioning, weightlifting, building culture. Who would have thought, well, Utah already has culture. No, you got to water that every day and adjust it every day. And it's crazy to think that Media Day is next week, right after the 4th. We're going to take a tremendous amount of people there, our top guys led by Devin and others. And they're ready. They're itching. I mean, you go over the facility right now, you'll see them all there. They wish it could start tomorrow. There's an enthusiasm that's really hard to explain, but you can feel it and it's real. And we're excited about, that Thursday night's coming fast, Matt.
It is.
Let's
go.
My
birthday.
Let's go. Really?
Yeah. September 3rd.
There you go.
You're going to work that night?
I think I'm going to work that night.
Yeah, your boss should give you the day off.
Chairman. Wait a minute. Yeah, it'll be here quick. And I would say, just from my perspective, I'm about as excited about this football team in this fall than I've been about any squad in a long time.
So, Matt, of course, just for your context, I was a student at the University of Utah in the 90s.
Okay.
And we were kind of talking a little bit off air. You had played baseball in college, and I wanted to play basketball for Rick Majerus, but I showed up and the other point guard was Andre Miller. And so I called my father and said, there's a pro here. I can't do this. So I joined a fraternity and enjoyed my university experience. But we were a basketball school. Yeah. And every year it was fun. It was great to see the basketball team win conference championships. Keith Van Horn, Andre Miller, Hano Medela, Mike Doliak, Britton Johnson. I could go down the entire list. Yeah. And Coach McBride was doing a good job of laying a foundation, but it was tough sledding. Some years we won 5 or 6 games, and it was kind of like get to a bowl game and maybe compete with BYU, and that's a win. Obviously, Urban changed everything. I always say, kind of Urban bought the land, Kyle built the house, and hopefully Morgan completes the entire thing. And now we continue to move up, but we're now very much a football school. And Saturdays in the fall around here, dude, I cannot wait for you to experience it. It's fun. So your early takeaways from getting to know Morgan and your excitement about the football season coming up.
Oh my gosh. So I was with Morgan last week, and I feel like he needs to wear a seatbelt in every seat he's in. I mean, I just feel like the guy wants to run. He's ready to go. We were talking about some operational things. He's like, anything I can do to help you.
Yeah.
Tell me what you need. I was with Alex and Wes yesterday. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
These guys they're locked in. They're ready to go. It's hard to get time with them. I mean, they are working 24/7, whether it's recruiting. I mean, I think I was with Morgan for an hour and he had to take 2 or 3 recruiting calls, right? And then jump out and come back. And the guy's amazing.
Yeah.
And he keeps it all right here. Like he jumps right back into the meeting and he knows right where he left off and he's ready to go. And so for me, just seeing that level of excitement, that level of intensity, is something that's, again, refreshing and really exciting to watch.
There's a raw, unapologetic authenticity to Morgan Scalley, the man, that is pretty rare in this business, college or pro. Like, what you see is what you get. He was a fraternity brother. I've known him for 30 years. Okay. So, what you see is what you get. Yeah. And I'm so juiced for him because I know how long he's been waiting. I asked Mark this a couple weeks ago, so I've got to ask you, Matt. Of course, hardcore football fans see a piece of information like, oh, we're about to get hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah. So we're going to go buy a quarterback. So we're going to go buy a running back. We're going to go buy a brand new offensive line. Yeah. You're the CEO of Crimson Brand Partners. For our football fan listeners that are wondering whether or not we have the ability to keep up with our peers economically to bring players in, you say to them what?
That's the plan, right? For us, we are so the way we talk about it, we talk to Morgan or Alex or anything, we're the bank, right? So you should have a level of certainty now that you haven't had before, right? We are going to go out and we're going to build revenue models. We are going to build these great partnerships. We're going to think differently about how we maximize Rice Eccles Stadium, right? And the Huntsman Center. We are going to put more dates on the calendar, right? And all of that leads to more revenue inflow. When we do that, the output is more revenue back to the athletic department. So for them, certainty is huge. We were with Joe last week too, the GM with Morgan. He's like, I just need to know the numbers. I can go get the guys. Yeah. Just tell me the numbers. Right, and I think that's a huge thing for them to just have that level of comfortability and know that our job is just to grow it every single year.
Mark, every school, I mean, look, if we're honest, it's P2. We're not going to talk Big Ten today. Okay. We'll save that for another time. But look, you could do worse than the Big 12, okay? Obviously, Brett Yormark, a talented commissioner. Well, media rights will go to market in 4 or 5 years. But until then, when it comes to generating revenue, and Matt just alluded to this, what can you share as far as the plans of updating the Huntsman Center or what you plan to do to Rice Eccles Stadium and how that will affect the consumer experience?
Well, it's good timing for the question. Just this morning, we put out an email to multiple thousands of people that have come through the Huntsman Center in various different events to get some opinions on what they're looking for, what their expectations are. We have Populous on board along with VCBO as a local company that are going to gather a lot of information. We're really settling in on that location and really trying to renovate. That's the goal. Can we do it? So they're doing a bunch of engineering. But we want to hear from everybody. We know, as Matt alluded to, we have to maximize these venues. And just in my tenure here, just watching what the Red Zone did in the South has been phenomenal. I mean, that thing renews at 97, 98%, and we have a waiting list for every premium product in there. It's just desired. We just don't have that. I love the Huntsman Center. The history is incredible. You can feel it when you're in there, but it's a new day and expectations are different, and we need to create a new environment. So that's going to be a really fun project that we're going to be pushing forward with a lot more information to come. And certainly with Matt and his team here, who've been a part, some of the leaders at Otro, they've built things. I mean, Alec was involved in the construction of Jerry's World. I can imagine how that was. I got to get him to tell me more stories how that went. But so that they'll be just advisors on that, giving us their thoughts. But that's going to be a really exciting project moving forward.
Yeah. And let me brag, if I can, on one of our guys. So we hired Joel Adams.
Okay.
So Joel's our chief ticketing officer. He opened Intuit Dome and was a part of that project.
Nice.
Right. He most recently was at the Arizona Cardinals. They just did a huge renovation there. He was part of a $500 million renovation that turned, I think it was with Sun Life, into Hard Rock Stadium down in Miami. So he's got this wealth of knowledge, and he's looking at this with a brand new perspective, right? And so these surveys are going to be great to tell us what our fans want, and then he'll be able to design to spec, which is going to be great.
No, that sounds great. And as Mark referenced, the radio station over at ESPN 700, we've been the only radio home of Utah athletics over 70 years, and obviously we get juiced come fall to have football back on our station as well. But I do want to ask you, Matt, a question that I just kind of alluded to with Mark and asked him a couple of weeks ago, a little bit more forcefully, respectfully. There is this, when people hear private equity, they just panic. And as I've said, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, not all private equity is created equal. And there are different operators and different motivations for different projects. But there is this kind of permutation of, like, I would say, tepid fear about what this means for a football program specifically that people love around here. Will their consumer experience be more expensive? Will it be different? Will they be priced out? Now, look, tickets rise every year for every school and every team and every sport. That's how this deal is. Yeah. So, but other than that, what would you say to people that are just nervous about the unknown?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. I think the biggest misnomer with us is this whole slash and burn mentality. Mm-hmm. Private equity comes in. We're going to cut a bunch of cut people, cut process, and just try to milk every dollar out of this thing. And that's not it. We believe in this brand. The Utah brand is unbelievable, right? It's absolutely unbelievable, and we are going to foster the brand, build the brand, and that's the way that we operate, right? We're going to pour more into this, and with the plan of it creates that umbrella effect, right? So the more we pour in, the bigger the umbrella grows, and then we have revenue streams that pull down from that. So when you look at the stadium, we need to be able to meet our fans where they are. If it's someone who needs an entry level ticket, we need to be able to provide that for them. Yeah. If it's someone who wants to put their family in a suite, we need to be able to provide that for them too. Mm-hmm. And there's probably 10 different iterations along the line, and right now we don't have that in both buildings, and so we got to find that. But we are pouring into this brand. We believe in it. Again, I moved my family here. All these other folks that we brought in, they moved their families here. We care about this. We love this. And I'll say this too. The love that these fans and just the community has for the University of Utah is unmatched. Oh, yeah. It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's weird. It's like, they love it like a child. Yeah. It's not just this intensity. It is a real love affair.
Well, I've always believed people love their college teams in a different way than they love their pro teams, because you may have met your wife in college. All of my friends to this day are guys I met at the University of Utah. You could meet your wife, I guess, if you're working for the Pelicans, but your formative years are spent at your school. There's a different tie there. Mark, we'll end with you, and we'll end on this because I told you I was going to ask you off air. You are the first to consummate a deal such as this. And if it was the right thing to do, everybody would do it, right? And I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm going to ask you why this and why now.
Yeah, well, for University of Utah, it certainly was the right thing to do as we studied this and looked at it and learned about, how could we create a company outside of the university that we could put all these assets together? How do we operate it? Oh, what if we found someone that would be willing to invest in it and bring with them great people? What if we could get some other people involved? to also invest in this company outside again of the university and then move our revenue flows. And so it just began a process. Some of the presidents, and I've talked to more than a few presidents that have pulled me aside or called, their structure may not let them in the state system that they're in,
Sure,
or whatever it might be, or the president has got other things, so for us, it just all aligned. But I'm really excited about where we're at. I feel like this reminds me a little bit about COVID. We just did the right stuff. We made the good decisions, and we launched into multiple championships. I have the same feeling now. I think we're being really innovative. Our challenge right now, Spence, we've got to communicate this. That's on me to really get people to understand that, we're marching forward with 500 great young people, as Matt described, that need to be supported. And I think this is really going to help us, win on the court, classroom, and in the community.
Awesome. Paul's giving me the side eye, so it's time to end this. I'm just kidding, Paul. Hey, Mark, great to see you as always. Matt, great to meet you. Welcome to Salt Lake.
Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Apologize for the audio. I don't want to talk about it. But what I do want to talk about is my friends at America First Credit Union and my guy Dave in studio for one more hit. Mm-hmm. Dave, we got the 15th annual Backpack Bonanza. Tell us about it.
For the last 15 years, we have been benefiting the lives of parents and kids. When you go back to school, there's a lot of cost that goes into that. You have clothes, you have school supplies, you have lunches, you have all the sports and the extracurricular activities that you might do. Mm-hmm. And that's just an overwhelming cost for a lot of people, especially if you're of meager means and you can't afford to, get any of that stuff. And so we found an opportunity for us to be able to lift some of those kids. And so we've been doing this Backpack Bonanza where we provide backpacks to school districts and other organizations with backpacks full of supplies. Being our 15th year, we have a pretty aggressive goal that we want to supply these. And we have some awesome partners that are also willing to help step up. And so we could not do this without these partners and without the contributions of our members and the community at large. And so that goal is to provide 2,500 backpacks to schools and organizations across our footprint.
That's awesome. All right, new member offer. Okay, call to action now.
Yeah.
Why should people make the switch?
We believe firmly in what we do. We have that balance of high tech and high touch, and members want to be served in their way that's personal to them. And so if you're a member who wants to just do things from your office or your bedroom or from the train, we've got great online presence, online mobile app that's just great. It can handle a lot of things. We have a lot of members who move out of state. They keep their accounts because of how good our products and services are. There's a lot of members who still like that personalized contact, and they want someone to listen to them. They want to sit down with somebody and explain and have that high-touch experience. And so, that high-tech and high-touch is really what's built that trust in our membership. And so right now, if you're not a member of the credit union, we have a great screaming deal for you to come and try us. It's a $350 offer for opening up an account and getting some services with us. You might be a little nervous to fully jump in, and so you want to get your toe wet. Open up an account, open up a savings and a checking, and we'll give you $150. And there's no strings attached. That's great for barbecues or summer travel or just enjoying the summer. Bring over your direct deposit and receive some paychecks. Only $1,000 over the next 60 days. We'll give you an additional $200. So $350 just for signing up and joining. We've had a ton of members who have taken advantage of that and realize just how we can help them get their money working for them. And so it's been a very, very successful summer for us.
Love it. Get it done today. You can visit any America First Credit Union branch. Go to americafirst.com or dial 1-800-999-3961. That's 1-800-999-3961. Dave, always a pleasure.
Thanks so much, man. It's great to be with you.
All right, more college football coming up next on ESPN 700. All right, wrapping it up. Good Monday show. Once again, I've received multiple messages. I apologize for the audio of my conversations with Mark Harlan and Matt Webb. Wish I could tell you what's going on. We're doing our best over there to make our way through. But appreciate Paul Kirk for helping us out. Appreciate Mark and Matt for sitting down with us today. So some good stuff there. Shout out to the UGA, our guy Easton Folster. We had the Utah media portion of the tournament for the Utah Women's Am, which is next week. I played with Arden Lockheim, who is the daughter of one David Locke, and the defending champ. She won it a year ago, and what a delightful young lady. We're going to get her on the show this week as well. Porter, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Did you ask who won the media? Did you ask me who won the media tournament today?
I was curious, yeah.
Well, it was me.
I'm impressed.
Well, there's only like 12 of us.
And who, let's be clear, who were the others?
Jeff Rainier, my guy, Fox 13.
Okay.
Some other folks will leave off air. But I think I played in 5 or 6, so to take home the trophy that doesn't exist, thanks, Easton. There's a trophy for the men's tournament and not one for the women. What are we doing here? This show supports equality. Let's be clear.
Of course. We could probably get you a trophy made up.
Well, I'm putting pressure on Easton. Like, if I'm going to win the tournament, I need a trophy. We need to book Easton this week, and I'm going to give him endless grief.
Okay.
So,
congrats, though.
Thank you.
What'd you shoot?
84. It was gross, not net. I'm telling you, that course is hard. And these girls are amazing to watch play. Like, Arden is awesome. She played college golf at Nebraska. She won the thing a year ago, so she played in the National Am tournament. And, just watching her precision was really, really impressive. It's the greens more than anything else that kill you. Everything is sliding all over the place.
Just too fast.
Yeah, extremely fast.
Tournament golf.
Tournament golf, baby. So grinded, but yeah, she's an impressive young lady, and I'll be pulling for her to win. 119th Utah Women's State Amateur is next week up at Oak Ridge Country Club in Farmington. So had a good day doing that. All right, it's one of the slowest sports days of the year is Home Run Derby Day. That's next.
It is.
You should listen.
You should listen to the home run. Don't watch it. Listen to it on ESPN Radio.
Who watches it? Who's the favorite? Is my guy Aaron Judge in it?
I believe so.
All rise. What do we got? Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper. Didn't Schwarber win it last year?
Yes.
Aaron Judge not in the field. I think he's hurt. Ben Rice is in the field.
Jay Caglione.
There are no
Wilson Contreras.
Okay.
And Jordan Walker.
There are no New York Metropolitans in the field. How are your boys doing, by the way?
Not great.
Same old?
Listen, when you got the Cody Campbell of the MLB running the show, you should be doing better than they are.
Yeah, you have an owner who will spend money.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Maybe we should do more baseball. We haven't done a lot of baseball. Done a ton of summer league, NBA offseason. Where's LeBron going to play? Why haven't we heard yet?
What's going on here?
What are we doing? What's going on? Let's talk about Maine.
I think he's going back to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Or Philly. Kind of a dark horse there. I don't know though. It's been weird.
Isn't that like the last big piece of news we're waiting for?
As far as the NBA offseason, I would say so.
Okay. All right. Well, Home Run Derby coming up next. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. What's coming up, Porter, on a Tuesday edition of the show?
Tuesday edition of the program. Your friend Steve Starks stopping by, of course, after you chat tomorrow. Gordon Monson in studio for an entire hour. So we'll get a bunch to catch up on with Gordo. And then our friend Dave Fox stops by on a Tuesday, fresh off of a houseboat trip.
Yeah, his videos, man, I can't. Like, I used to think it was somewhat endearing and cute, and now it's just like, it's Dave in a straight brim hat with a dirty soda with some aggressive EDM tracks behind the whole thing. He did release one with an Enya song.
There we go.
Sail Away. Down for the videos of the grandkids, surfing and skiing on the back, but the selfies that a 70-year-old man is willing to post and the selfie videos, it's wild.
Keep doing your thing, Dave.
Yeah, you be you, Dave. All right, so join us for a busy Tuesday show. Special thank you today to Matt Brown, Pablo Mastroeni, Sammy Mora, Mark Harlan, Matt Webb, our friend Dave from America First Credit Union for any of the sound that you missed. Go to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Download the mobile app. Take us on the go. Check out the podcast page, 2 of them. The Drive with Spence Checketts or Reality Check with Spence Checketts featuring Mark Harlan and Matt Webb. That was last week's episode. This week, the CEO of the LHM Sports and Entertainment Group, Steve Starks. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Home Run Derby coming up next. Catch all the action right here on ESPN.